What if the world we think we know is only a shadow of hidden truths? From vanished civilizations to unsolved disappearances, history hides secrets so strange they defy explanation. Ancient maps whisper of lost cities, coded messages hint at conspiracies, and the echoes of forgotten rituals linger in places as distant as the deserts of Palestine. Some mysteries are chilling not because they frighten, but because they dare us to ask what really happened. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into 3 hours of history's most haunting rabbit holes, where every answer only deepens the intrigue. The Ural Mountains stretch endlessly beneath a cold, gray sky, their jagged peaks slicing through the horizon like silent sentinels. Snow blankets the slopes in an unbroken, blinding white, muffling sound, and obscuring all traces of movement. In February 1959, a small group of hikers led by Igor Dyatlov ventured into this forbidding landscape. Days later, what remained of their expedition would spark one of the most chilling mysteries of modern history. Among the many puzzling details, one fact stands out with unnerving clarity. One of the victims was discovered with her tongue missing. The Dyatlov Pass incident is steeped in meticulous records and forensic reports. Investigators documented the scene with precision, tents torn from within, footprints leading into the night, and bodies scattered across the snow, some partially clothed, some showing signs of extreme trauma. Yet, despite this detailed record, the missing tongue has never been satisfactorily explained. Initial autopsies described no obvious cause, no predator attack, no clear surgical removal. Was it a post-mortem anomaly, a bizarre consequence of environmental factors, or something far more unsettling hidden in the shadows of human experience? Historians and forensic specialists have proposed a series of plausible explanations. Some suggest severe frostbite could cause soft tissue to deteriorate rapidly, while others point to scavenging by wild animals drawn to the scene. Yet both theories strain against the circumstances. The victim's body was discovered in conditions that should have preserved tissue. No teeth marks or other typical signs of wildlife interference were recorded, and the cold, dense snow seemed to inhibit rather than encourage decomposition. It's as if the tongue simply vanished, leaving behind only the whisper of a question. Then there are the less conventional theories. Over the decades, writers, researchers, and amateur sleuths have pointed to possibilities ranging from secret military tests to inexplicable natural phenomena. Some highlight reports of unusual radiation readings near the site. Others speculate on rare psychological or physiological effects triggered by hypothermia under extreme conditions. Each hypothesis carries its own weight of plausibility and its own unsettling gaps. Could something as simple and human as fear, confusion, and frostbite have created circumstances so strange that even the missing tongue is explainable? Or does it hint at forces just beyond our comprehension? Eyewitness accounts and surviving records add another layer of ambiguity. Local villagers recalled hearing strange, unidentifiable sounds in the hours leading up to the hikers' disappearance. Sparse radio logs from nearby settlements noted odd atmospheric conditions, unremarkable in isolation but eerie when considered alongside the timeline of the hikers' final movements. And yet, despite the careful chronicling of every detail, the element that draws both fascination and dread, the absent tongue, remains unresolved. It is in this silence, this absence, that the Dyatlov Pass mystery finds its power. Science and speculation intersect, but neither can fully account for what occurred. The scene itself, a frozen, desolate expanse interrupted by fragments of human life, resists a single explanation. Each theory seems to illuminate part of the story, only to leave another shadowed corner untouched. The more we examine, the more the unknown asserts itself, quietly daring us to question what we believe about the limits of nature, the fragility of the human body, and the hidden variables that govern events far from civilization. As the cold wind continues to sweep across the pass, one cannot help but return to that simple, unnerving fact. A tongue vanished without trace. A detail so small, yet so impossible to ignore. And in that absence lies the enduring enigma. What truly happened to the Dyatlov hikers remains an open question, a puzzle of flesh and frost, of recorded history and whispered speculation, inviting anyone who dares to wonder at the fragile boundary between the known and the inexplicable. As the snow and silence of the Ural Mountains slowly fade from our minds, we shift our gaze eastward to the remote Siberian taiga, where another enigma of nature waits in quiet, frozen suspension. In the early hours of June 30th, 1908, an unimaginable force ripped through the skies above the Tunguska River, flattening thousands of square kilometers of dense forest. Even more curious than the scale of destruction is what researchers discovered when they examined the epicenter years later: a peculiar radial pattern in the fallen trees, as if the forest itself had been compelled into a precise circular geometry by an invisible hand. Walking through the Tunguska site today, the landscape is deceptively serene. Pine and large trees rise in clusters, interrupted by open clearings where decades-old stumps hint at a violent past. Yet beneath this calm lies an intricate puzzle. Historical records from local witnesses describe a blinding fireball streaking across the sky, followed by a shockwave so powerful it knocked people off their feet hundreds of kilos away. Scientists have long posited a meteoric or cometary explosion in the atmosphere, a celestial body detonating before it could reach the Earth's surface. And yet, the forest itself, trees bent and splintered in concentric arcs radiating from a central point, defies simple explanation. Why do the trees lie in such uniform outward lines? Why does the pattern suggest a force that was simultaneously downward and outward, not just linear as one would expect from a meteorite? The Tunguska event has been subject to meticulous investigation since the first expeditions reached the area decades after the explosion. Soil samples, tree rings, and preserved vegetation have all been examined in search of clues. Levels of certain isotopes suggested extreme heat and radiation. Yet no crater has ever been found. It is as if the Earth absorbed the impact without leaving the typical signature of collision. Mainstream science points to a mid-air explosion of a meteoroid composed of ice and rock, a hypothesis supported by the absence of residual fragments. Still, the epicenter's tree pattern continues to puzzle researchers. Some trees appear scorched on one side, while others are twisted as though caught in a directional wind that shifts mid-destruction. Speculative interpretations of Tunguska's strange geometry abound. Some suggest unusual atmospheric phenomena amplified the force, producing a shockwave unlike anything commonly seen. Others propose magnetic or electrical influences, a discharge of energy that interacted with the forest in ways that modern physics struggles to fully describe. A few fringe theories even point to experimental aircraft or unknown technologies. Although such ideas remain largely conjectural, unverified, and deliberately enigmatic, the forest itself, with its radial design of fallen timber, stands as a silent witness, offering a visual record that refuses a single definitive answer. Eyewitness accounts further complicate the mystery. Villagers and nomadic tribes reported a thunderous roar brighter than the sun, shaking the ground and setting fire to distant trees. Animals fled in chaotic patterns. Birds fell from the sky, and the river itself reportedly seemed to ripple under invisible pressure. Yet in many ways, the natural world absorbed the event, growing back in the decades that followed, masking the epic violence with the appearance of ordinary wilderness. Still, the central anomaly remains. Those trees arranged like spokes on an unseen wheel, a geometric testimony to a force both immense and baffling. Scientific expeditions in the 20th and 21st centuries attempted to model the event using everything from computer simulations to high-altitude photography. Each study confirmed the enormity of the explosion, but could only partially replicate the intricate radial felling of trees. How could a meteor disintegrating in the upper atmosphere produce such precise, almost artistic patterns on the ground? What unseen variables might have influenced the distribution of energy, heat, and pressure in a forest stretching for tens of kilos? And so, the Tunguska site continues to challenge our understanding of natural phenomena. It stands as a bridge between the known and the unknown, where verified science and open-ended inquiry converge. The radial tree pattern, frozen in time and memory, invites observers to consider the limits of human comprehension. Was it a cosmic accident, a subtle interplay of physics we have yet to fully understand? Or something altogether stranger waiting patiently for discovery? Patiently for, in the silence of the Siberian forest, one cannot help but feel the lingering presence of that day in 1908. The fallen trees, arranged in their deliberate radial arcs, whisper the story of an unimaginable force that swept the land with precision and power. And as we trace their outlines step by step, we are left with the same haunting question that has persisted for over a century. What truly shaped the heart of Tunguska, and what secrets of energy, nature, and the cosmos still remain hidden beneath the canopy of those resilient, patient trees as the towering trees of Siberia slowly fade behind us, and the echoes of a cosmic blast gives way to silence. Our journey now carries us southward across centuries and deserts to the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, where an unassuming clay jar sits quietly in the shelves of a museum, holding a mystery as profound as any blast or vanishing tongue. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this artifact has puzzled archaeologists and historians since its discovery in the 1930s, challenging assumptions about ancient technology, craftsmanship, and ingenuity. At first glance, the object appears simple. A small terracotta vessel roughly the size of a modern coffee mug with a copper cylinder lining its interior and an iron rod suspended within, all encased by an insulating Bowman plug. Yet in its simplicity lies a question that has haunted scholars for decades. What was its true purpose? Mainstream explanations suggest it could have been a storage container for scrolls or even a ceremonial object with symbolic meaning. With the physical design, the separation of metals and the careful placement of insulating material suggests something more practical, something functional. Scientific experiments in the 20th century added fuel to the intrigue. When filled with acidic liquids such as vinegar or citrus juice, the jars produced small but measurable amounts of electric current. Could these ancient artisans have unknowingly built a rudimentary battery millennia before Alejandro Baluta would formalize the concept of electricity in the 18th century? The idea seems almost fantastical that civilizations in Mesopotamia flourishing between 250 BC and 250 A might have experimented with electrochemical reactions, harnessing energy in ways we had believed were beyond their reach. Yet the debate is far from settled. Critics point out that no wires, no lighting devices, no recorded applications of electrical power have ever been found from that era. Was the battery simply an incidental consequence of materials chosen for other purposes? Or might there be evidence lost to time, hidden in perishable materials, or buried beneath layers of sediment waiting to be uncovered? The absence of definitive usage does not diminish the allure of the artifact. It only deepens it, leaving space for speculation, for wonder, for the acknowledgement that history may yet hold surprises beyond our current imagination. Some of the more speculative theories suggest the jars could have been used for electroplating, a process of coating one metal with another using electricity, potentially explaining decorative objects found in the region made of thin layers of gold. Others propose medicinal uses, perhaps generating mild currents for therapeutic applications. Though no textual evidence survives to confirm such practices, each hypothesis illuminates a different facet of human curiosity, of ingenuity, and of the desire to manipulate the natural world. And yet each leaves unanswered questions that pull at the edges of certainty. The artifact itself, when held and examined, seems almost to hum with history. One can imagine an artisan carefully pressing copper into clay, adjusting the iron rod, sealing the vessel with Bowman. What knowledge guided their hands? Were they experimenting or simply following ritual prescriptions that have since been forgotten? And why does this singular object preserved for millennia continue to provoke debate over technology, science, and the boundaries of human innovation? In the broader context, the Baghdad Battery challenges the narrative of linear progress. It hints that ancient civilizations, often dismissed as primitive in comparison to modern technological standards, may have explored concepts that would later become cornerstones of science. It forces us to reconsider how much we truly understand about human ingenuity, and how much remains obscured by the passage of time. Could there be other yet undiscovered artifacts in Mesopotamia or beyond silently holding secrets of experimentation and discovery lost to history? As we linger over the small clay jar, the mystery persists. Its copper and iron, its insulating seal, its potential to generate electricity, each element is a whisper from the past, a question without a definitive answer. The Baghdad Battery may never fully reveal its secrets, yet it continues to captivate, inviting historians, scientists, and the curious alike to ponder the ingenuity of a civilization long vanished. And perhaps that is the essence of history's most compelling mysteries. They do not always offer conclusions, but instead ask us to imagine, to question, and to marvel at what might still lie hidden in the quiet corners of our world. From the arid plains of Mesopotamia, where a small clay jar sparks questions about the ingenuity of ancient civilizations, our journey shifts northward once again, this time to the rugged landscapes of Scandinavia and the frozen riverbeds of early medieval Europe. Here, among burial mounds, sun-bleached fields and rivers long frozen by winter, archaeologists have uncovered a series of artifacts that defy conventional understanding. The Ulfar swords gleaming in museums and private collections alike are more than just weapons. They are enigmas, pieces of metallurgy that whisper secrets of skill, trade, and perhaps even knowledge beyond their time. At first glance, Ulfbert's sword appears like any other finely crafted weapon of the Viking Age. A long, double-edged blade balanced for speed and precision, the hilt often adorned with inscriptions, most famously the name Ulf-Bear etched along the fuller. Yet a closer examination reveals anomalies that have fascinated metallurgists and historians for decades. Analysis shows that these blades contain an extraordinarily high concentration of carbon paired with minimal impurities, a combination that produces metal far stronger and more flexible than the contemporary technology of the 9th to 11th centuries could reliably achieve. How did blacksmiths of the early medieval period create steel of such exceptional quality, with resources and tools believed to be relatively primitive? Archaeological and metallurgical studies confirm the consistency of these high-carbon blades across centuries and hundreds of miles from burial sites in Norway to riverbeds in Germany, and even as far as the Eurasian steppes. The uniformity of the craftsmanship suggests a level of technological knowledge strikingly advanced for the era. Some historians propose that the Ulfiths may have been early pioneers of crucible steel production, a method more commonly associated with the Middle East and Central Asia. Could knowledge of such techniques have traveled along trade routes connecting Europe with distant lands, quietly transmitted through merchants and itinerant craftsmen? The evidence is tantalizing but frustratingly incomplete. The swords themselves invite contemplation. Holding one, even as a replica, one can feel the delicate balance of weight and power. The blade seems to hum with a history of battles fought, reputations forged, and artisans' hands shaping raw iron into perfection. And yet the metallurgical questions remain. Carbon concentrations in Ulf blades sometimes approach levels that modern blacksmiths struggle to achieve without contemporary technology. Were these blades forged using processes lost to history, refined in secret workshops, or perhaps even infused with knowledge acquired from faraway lands? Each sword discovered opens a window into a past both tangible and elusive, challenging assumptions about the limits of medieval craftsmanship. The inscriptions add another layer to the mystery. Ulfert is not merely a brand. It represents a lineage, a mark of prestige, and perhaps even protection in the eyes of the Norse warriors who wielded them. Yet, analysis of the inscriptions shows variations, with some blades appearing to be high-quality forgeries, possibly intended to capitalize on the reputation of the original smiths. This suggests a sophisticated system of trade, branding, and reputation management in an era often imagined as isolated and primitive. Were these swords the medieval equivalent of luxury goods, coveted across regions for both their deadly effectiveness and their symbolic power? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers have suggested that the techniques used in Ulf swords could not have been developed independently in Northern Europe, that the presence of high-carbon steel implies contact with advanced metallurgical knowledge from regions as distant as Persia, the Indian subcontinent, or even further east. Others propose the possibility of experimentation with early alloying methods lost over time. Evidence of a small cadre of exceptionally skilled smiths whose secrets vanished with them. Could these blades be the product of itinerant master craftsmen wandering across rivers and fjords, spreading their knowledge like whispers carried by the wind? Even the practical applications of these swords inspire awe. Contemporary accounts suggest that Ulf blades could slice through the mail and lesser weapons of the era with astonishing ease, a testament not only to design but to the quality of the steel itself. Yet modern metallurgists remain perplexed by the consistency of results across centuries, given the limitations of Viking Age forges and tools. Were these blades simply the pinnacle of trial and error innovation? Or do they hint at a deeper, more systematic understanding of chemistry and metallurgy that predates much of what historians assumed about Europe at the time? The archaeological context only deepens the intrigue. Many Ulf swords are found in burial sites positioned with care alongside warriors or nobles, suggesting a symbolic as well as practical significance. The intertwining of technology, art, and ritual raises further questions. Did the swords carry spiritual weight representing divine favor or social status? And did the metallurgical precision itself convey a kind of power, a tangible expression of skill that elevated the wielder above ordinary men? In examining the Ulfar blades, we confront a tension between what is known and what can only be surmised. The artifacts themselves, the inscriptions, the metallurgical anomalies, and the patterns of distribution all point toward a civilization capable of extraordinary technical accomplishment. And yet, the full story of how these blades were produced, who truly mastered the techniques, and what knowledge may have been lost over time, remains just out of reach. As we trace the edge of an old sword, feeling its weight and imagining its swing in a distant battlefield, we are reminded that history is often preserved in fragments, sometimes in steel, sometimes in clay, sometimes in the radial arcs of trees frozen under Siberian snow. These swords, like the Baghdad battery and the Tunguska tree patterns, invite us to peer closer, to question assumptions, and to wonder at the ingenuity of those who came before us. How much knowledge has been lost to the centuries, and what secrets might still be waiting in the hands of artisans whose names have vanished, but whose work endures, sharp and radiant across time. The Ulfert Viking sword metallurgy puzzle. From the frozen forests of Scandinavia, where Ulfert swords testify to a mastery of metallurgy that seems almost impossibly advanced for its time, our journey of discovery leads us westward into the quiet farmlands of central France, to a small village called Glozelle. In 1924, beneath its unassuming soil, a young farmer named Emile Freda unearthed a series of artifacts that would ignite one of archaeology's most enduring and contentious debates. Among these discoveries were dozens of clay tablets inscribed with strange symbols and accompanied by bone fragments, pottery shards, and small figurines, all seemingly pointing to a culture that had left behind a written record unlike anything previously known. The tablets themselves are modest in size, often only a few centimeters long. Yet their surfaces are covered with intricate inscriptions, rows of abstract signs, some resembling alphabetic characters, others pictorial motifs. At first glance, they appear deliberate, purposeful, suggesting communication, notation, or ritual. Yet, when scholars attempted to classify them, conventional methods faltered. The symbols did not match any known script, and radiocarbon dating of associated organic materials offered dates ranging broadly from as early as 3000 BC to the medieval period. This vast chronological ambiguity left historians questioning whether Global represented a lost civilization, an overlooked chapter in human history, or a remarkable hoax. Mainstream archaeology initially approached the site with cautious intrigue. Early examinations suggested the artifacts could be the remnants of a Neolithic settlement, with the tablet serving some unknown function, ritual, record-keeping, or symbolic art. Laboratory analyses of clay composition, tool marks, and firing techniques indicated methods consistent with historical pottery, lending a degree of credibility to their antiquity. Yet, even with these findings, consensus remained elusive. Were the tablets genuine evidence of a previously unknown written culture, or simply the product of a clever hand attempting to confound scholars? The controversy intensified as prominent figures entered the debate. Emile Freda's discovery was met with both enthusiasm and skepticism. Some archaeologists argued that the stylistic consistency, the traces of wear, and the careful placement of artifacts suggested authenticity. Others noted anomalies, unexpected tool marks, inconsistencies in symbols, and an absence of clear contextual connections to surrounding settlements. The debate became so heated that legal investigations ensued. Scholars were publicly accused of fraud, and the site itself was closed, leaving the artifacts in limbo. Speculative theories flourished alongside conventional scholarship. Some researchers proposed that Glow could be evidence of a previously unknown script developed independently in Western Europe, a parallel invention of literacy that challenges our understanding of the spread of writing. Others have suggested ritualistic explanations that the symbols were magical or mystical in purpose, intended to encode beliefs or ceremonies lost to time. Fringe interpretations have even posited connections to Atlantis or other hypothetical advanced civilizations, drawing on the apparent uniqueness and inexplicability of the inscriptions. Each hypothesis captures the imagination, yet none can claim definitive proof. Scientific testing over the decades has been equally confounding. Radiocarbon dating of bone fragments and organic residue associated with the tablets has returned conflicting results. Some tests indicate Neolithic origins, others suggest medieval manufacture, leaving open the possibility that the site was used over centuries or that later artifacts were introduced. Microscopic analysis shows patterns consistent with handling, but skeptics argue that these marks could be artificially created. Even the language of the symbols, when analyzed for frequency, repetition, and structure, produces patterns that are tantalizingly suggestive of communication, yet fail to match any decipherable syntax known to scholars. Walking through the small museum in Glul, where many of the original artifacts are now preserved, one cannot help but sense the palpable tension of history and mystery intertwined. The clay tablets, each one carefully catalogued and displayed, invite viewers to linger over the enigmatic inscriptions, tracing their grooves with a finger and imagining the hands that formed them thousands of years ago. Who made these symbols, and for what purpose? Did they belong to a thriving literate community whose story has been erased? Or were they an elaborate attempt to create history itself? In many ways, Glozell exemplifies the broader tension between human curiosity and the fragmentary nature of the archaeological record. The site challenges assumptions about who could communicate when and how. It reminds us that history is rarely neat. It is messy, layered, and often contradictory. For every detail that appears to confirm authenticity, there is another that raises doubt. For every sign of deliberate design, there is a shadow of uncertainty. And it is precisely this ambiguity that has kept Glozell alive in the imaginations of scholars, writers, and enthusiasts for nearly a century. As we linger over the clay tablets and ponder the carefully inscribed symbols, we are reminded that the pursuit of understanding often leads us into the tension between knowledge and speculation. The Glozell artifacts, with their intricate markings, mysterious context, and persistent controversy, do not offer easy answers. Instead, they invite us to wonder, to question, and to consider the vast expanse of human history that remains hidden just beneath the surface. What secrets might still lie buried in the French soil, waiting to challenge our understanding of literacy, culture, and the capabilities of civilizations long past? And as with all of history's most compelling mysteries, the absence of certainty may be precisely what makes the enigma endured. From the fields of France, where clay tablets whisper of disputed antiquity and enigmatic inscriptions, our journey now moves eastward across the vast Eurasian steppes to a place long swallowed by desert sands, the lost city of Karakoto. Nestled on the edge of the Gobi Desert, this black city was once a thriving settlement of the Western Shia dynasty, a fortress of stone and brick with bustling streets and sacred temples. Yet by the 14th century, it had been abandoned, leaving behind only ruins, echoes of human activity, and the fragments of manuscripts that continue to puzzle historians today. When explorers first reached Karakoto in the early 20th century, they were astonished to find not just the decaying walls of towers and citadels, but libraries of texts preserved in the dry desert air. Hundreds of manuscripts written in a script unfamiliar to many Western scholars were carefully cataloged and transported for study. These fragile pages, inscribed on paper, silk, and wood, contained Buddhist sutras, administrative records, and what appeared to be esoteric texts, messages that spoke across centuries from a civilization suddenly vanished. Yet their content was only part of the enigma. The very survival of these manuscripts in a city buried by sand seemed improbable, almost miraculous. At first glance, the texts tell a story consistent with known history. Western Jia was a literate, organized state with connections across Central Asia, thriving on trade, culture, and governance. Scholars can read certain portions identifying common religious and bureaucratic themes, but the manuscripts also contain passages that defy conventional interpretation, cryptic symbols, unexplained diagrams, and sequences of words that resist translation. Could these represent lost dialects, secret codices, or even forgotten mystical knowledge? And if so, what purpose did they serve in the daily life or spiritual practice of Krakatoa's inhabitants? The physical characteristics of the manuscripts deepen the mystery. Many were crafted with ink of unusual composition, showing chemical resilience that allowed them to survive centuries of wind and sun. Some inks contain metallic compounds, traces of rare minerals, and pigments whose sources were far from the city's immediate surroundings. How did a city on the periphery of the empire access materials from distant regions? Did these manuscripts reflect not just a local culture, but a network of trade and intellectual exchange stretching across Asia, connecting Karakoto to lands we now know as China, Mongolia, and beyond? Speculative interpretations have emerged alongside conventional scholarship. Certain diagrams and cryptic notations have led some researchers to propose advanced mathematical, astronomical, or numerical knowledge hidden in the texts. Perhaps a system lost to time, others suggest mystical or ritualistic purposes. A codification of spiritual practice meant to be accessible only to a select few. Fringe theories even hint at connections with lost continents, extraterrestrial influence, or hidden knowledge deliberately concealed from future generations. Though these ideas remain largely imaginative, emphasizing the mystery rather than claiming evidence, historical context offers additional layers of intrigue. Karakoto was besieged in the 13th century by Mongol forces, a moment that coincides with the abrupt disappearance of its inhabitants from the historical record. The manuscripts, preserved under layers of sand, act as a time capsule, a direct link to lives, thoughts, and beliefs erased from ordinary chronicles. Archaeologists note that the city's rapid abandonment and the preservation of manuscripts in scattered libraries suggest deliberate protection, or perhaps a hurried escape, leaving behind evidence of literacy, culture, and human endeavor that was both extraordinary and fragile. The manuscripts also pose challenges in interpretation. Linguists and historians debate whether the scripts represent a distinct language, a ciphered writing system, or a hybrid influenced by neighboring cultures. Each new attempt to decode or contextualize the texts produces tantalizing hints, yet leaves essential questions unanswered. Are we glimpsing the administrative routine of a desert city? The private contemplations of scholars and monks, or encoded knowledge meant to survive centuries of upheaval? The answer remains elusive. The answer remains the ruins today. One is struck by the silence. The walls, blackened by time and weather, seem to hum with the faint echoes of human activity. The desert wind sweeps across the remnants of temples and marketplaces, carrying grains of sand over the bricks as if preserving the city in a slow, eternal burial. The manuscripts, now housed in distant archives and museums, carry the whispers of Karakoto's inhabitants. Their voices faint but persistent. They challenge assumptions about literacy, culture, and continuity. They remind us that knowledge can endure even when civilizations vanish. And yet the questions persist. How did these texts survive centuries of abandonment in a hostile desert? What knowledge do they contain that remains undeciphered today? Could the manuscripts reveal practices, beliefs, or techniques of a civilization far more sophisticated than surviving historical records suggest? Karakoto, with its blackened walls and preserved manuscripts, embodies the tension between the known and the unknowable, inviting scholars, historians, and the curious to ponder the boundaries of human achievement and the mysteries that the sands of time continue to guard. In the shadow of this lost city, we are reminded that history is rarely complete. It is a mosaic of fragments, of documents, of ruins, of traces of thought and action that survive against improbable odds. The Karakoto manuscripts, enigmatic, resilient, and largely undeciphered, are a testament to the persistence of human expression and the enduring allure of mysteries that refuse to be fully explained. What still lies hidden beneath the desert sands, and what secrets might yet emerge to challenge our understanding of human history? The city may be blackened and silent, but its manuscripts continue to speak, waiting for the patient and curious to listen. From the sun-bleached ruins of Karakoto and the preserved manuscripts whispering of lost knowledge, our journey now moves southward to the mist-laden highlands of Laos, where an entirely different kind of enigma lies spread across the landscape. The Plain of Jars. Rolling hills and low plateaus stretch as far as the eye can see, dotted with thousands of megalithic stone jars, each carved from granite, sandstone, or conglomerate rock. They vary in size from just over a meter to more than 3 meters tall, some weighing several tons, and together they form a scene that seems at once deliberate and inexplicably mysterious, a testament to human effort and ingenuity whose purpose and method continue to elude scholars. Walking across the plain today, the jars present a surreal spectacle. Some stand upright, their hollowed interiors still intact, while others lie toppled, broken by centuries of exposure. The surfaces are worn by wind and rain, yet traces of human workmanship remain, from the smooth curvature of walls to marks hinting at chiseling or polishing. The sheer number of jars spread across multiple sites over a region exceeding 2,500 kilometers invites awe and questions in equal measure. How could societies of the Iron Age, equipped with simple tools and limited mechanical advantage, quarry, transport, and position these massive stones with such precision? What knowledge and labor organization must have been required to create something so monumental in both scale and consistency? Archaeological evidence offers partial clarity, It leaves the most profound questions unresolved. Excavations and radiocarbon dating suggest that the jars date primarily to 500 BC to 500 AD, an era of complex agrarian societies whose cultural and ritual practices are only partially understood. Some jars are positioned in clusters, others aligned in patterns that hint at purposeful spatial design. The uniformity of certain dimensions and the careful attention to shaping imply more than mere functionality. These are not random stones scattered without intent, yet no definitive tools, inscriptions, or contemporary written records survive to explain the construction methods or the ultimate purpose of the jars. Scholars have proposed several mainstream theories. The most widely accepted suggests that the jars were used for early practices. Skeletal remains, literary goods, and ash fragments have been found in some sites, hinting at mortuary or ritual use. Others speculate that they may have stored water, rice, or fermenting substances, perhaps for communal or ceremonial purposes. Laboratory analysis of residues from some jars revealed traces of organic materials supporting the idea of storage or ritual offerings. Yet even when considering function, the method of creation remains puzzling. How did the builders hollow out the massive stones with hand tools? How were stones transported, sometimes over kilometers without modern cranes or rolling mechanisms? Speculative theories abound, some more audacious than others. Certain researchers point to the possibility of lost mechanical techniques, perhaps wooden levers, sledges, or primitive pulley systems, the specifics of which have vanished from collective memory. Others have wondered if ritual knowledge dictated the construction sequence, a cultural tradition passed orally, where each step was guided by ceremonial or cosmological principles rather than engineering manuals. French interpretations occasionally suggest the jars represent markers of celestial observation, sacred geometry, or even remnants of an unidentified advanced society. While these ideas lack definitive proof, they highlight the depth of mystery and human curiosity that the plane of jars continues to evoke. The jars themselves convey subtle clues. Some exhibit wear patterns on their bases consistent with dragging, while others show signs of precise percussion along the interior walls. The distribution of jars across uneven terrain suggests planning and surveying capabilities beyond what one might expect for small-scale pre-literate societies. And yet, every excavation uncovers fragments and anomalies that deepen the puzzle rather than resolve it. Jars that appear unfinished, stones whose origin quarries remain unidentified, and clusters whose spatial arrangement resists easy explanation. Oral histories from local communities add texture to the mystery. Legends describe spirits and ancient kings, the jars as vessels for souls or repositories of sacred treasures. Villagers recount stories of massive labor gangs moving stones under moonlight, rituals performed to bless the jars and the jars' enduring power as a spiritual landscape. While such accounts cannot serve as empirical evidence, they underscore the continued human engagement with the site and hint at layers of meaning that extend beyond purely functional or archaeological interpretations. Modern technology has offered new insights, though it has also introduced more questions. Satellite imagery, LAR scanning, and geochemical analysis of stone sources have allowed researchers to map the distribution of jars and trace potential quarry sites. Patterns emerge suggesting intentional placement across valleys, ridges, and watercourses. Yet, even with these tools, the fundamental mysteries remain. How were the jars moved, carved, and positioned with such uniformity? And for what ultimate purpose? Could there have been a lost tradition of communal engineering that emphasized coordination, ritual, and knowledge passed down generations? Or do we glimpse here a society whose intentions, cultural beliefs, and technological methods will forever remain partially veiled by time? There is also the question of survival. The plane of jars endured centuries of exposure, weathering, conflict, and even bombings during the 20th century. Yet the jars remain standing as silent witnesses. Their persistence challenges modern assumptions about the fragility of ancient constructions and the endurance of cultural memory. Every chip, scratch, and hollow interior speaks to centuries of hands shaping stone, of collective effort and vision. And yet the methods and meaning behind these efforts continue to elude definitive explanation. Standing amidst the scattered megaliths, one is struck not only by their size, but by the quiet authority they convey. These jars, immense and enigmatic, hold within them centuries of labor, tradition, and mystery. They invite contemplation of what humanity can achieve with limited technology, ingenuity, and purpose. yet also serve as a reminder of the limits of our understanding. What do these stones tell us about the societies that created them, their beliefs, their capabilities, and their knowledge? And how much has already been lost to time, leaving only fragments, whispers, and stone to speak across millennia? The plain of jars, in its stillness and vastness, embodies the tension between the known and the unknown. Each jar, hollow and silent, is a question waiting to be understood. Together they form a landscape of human ambition and mystery, inviting scholars, travelers, and the curious to trace the shadows of a civilization that remains only partially illuminated. And as we walk among the rows of colossal stone vessels, we are left with the enduring question: how did people with seemingly simple tools and pre-iterate traditions manage to carve, transport, and arrange these massive jars with such precision? And what secrets about their lives, culture, and knowledge remain buried beneath the highland soil, waiting for discovery? For from the verdant highlands of Laos, where the plain of jars spreads across hills like a monument to human ingenuity and mystery, our journey now moves westward across centuries and continents to the heart of Europe, where a manuscript unlike any other sits quietly on a library shelf, whispering secrets that scholars have sought to decode for over a century. The Voynich manuscript, with its impossibly intricate illustrations and an indecipherable script, is already a singular enigma. Yet within its pages lies a section that has drawn particular fascination: the zodiac pages. Here constellations, astrological figures, and circular diagrams hint at knowledge both esoteric and precise, a celestial puzzle entwined with the broader mystery of the manuscript's origin, purpose, and meaning. At first glance, the zodiac section is breathtaking. Each page is dominated by a large circular diagram, densely populated with human figures, mythological symbols, and clusters of flora whose identification remains uncertain. The figures are sometimes depicted as bathing, interacting, or holding objects, suggesting rituals or symbolic connections. Around the perimeters of these circular charts are rows of smaller glyph-like figures inscribed in the manuscript's famously undeciphered script. The visual language is mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, and yet frustratingly opaque. We recognize elements of astrology, the rhythms of the cosmos, even early medical or alchemical symbolism, but the connections elude clear interpretation. Historical study places the manuscript in the early 15th century, likely originating in northern Italy or Central Europe, though the evidence is circumstantial. Radiocarbon dating of the vellum confirms its age, while stylistic analysis of the illustrations situates it firmly within the late medieval or early Renaissance period. Yet, despite this clarity regarding its physical provenance, the zodiac section remains a window into a worldview that is at once familiar and utterly alien. Could these pages reflect a lost system of astronomical observation, an alternative zodiac, or even a coded cosmology that sought to reconcile science, philosophy, and mysticism in a way that no other contemporary text has preserved? Scholars have long debated the function of the zodiac section. Some propose it is purely astrological, a compendium for calculating celestial influence on the human body or the natural world. Others suggest it is a medical or herbal guide, linking constellations to humoral theory or plant-based remedies. Yet, when comparing the zodiac images to known Western or Arabic astrological systems of the time, inconsistencies appear. Constellations are misaligned, figures appear inverted or mirrored, and certain zodiacal symbols have no obvious analog in contemporary charts. Could the manuscript represent a synthesis of multiple astrological traditions? Or perhaps a system unique to its author, intentionally obfuscated to protect secret knowledge? More speculative interpretations have emerged in recent decades. Some researchers have argued that the zodiac pages encode personal or ritualistic information functioning as a mnemonic device for ceremonies or an alchemical system. Others propose a cipher, a deliberate encoding of information that could only be unlocked with a key that is now lost. Fringe theories suggest connections to esoteric orders, pre-Christian mystical traditions, or even an entirely invented cosmology designed as an intellectual exercise. Each theory reflects the challenge of interpreting a text that resists linguistic, cultural, and historical anchors. The manuscript's materiality adds further intrigue. The ink and pigments, analyzed through modern techniques, reveal the use of compounds consistent with early Renaissance manuscript production. Yet some elements appear unusually sophisticated, with colors and metallic compounds whose sources would have been rare or costly at the time. The zodiac figures themselves are rendered with painstaking precision, demonstrating not only artistic skill, but an intimate understanding of proportion, circular geometry, and symbolic placement. How could a single author or a small collaborative workshop produce such consistent enigmatic illustrations without leaving comparable works elsewhere? The content of the zodiac pages also raises questions about the identity of the manuscript's creator. Could this have been the work of an astrologer, a physician, a monk, or perhaps a polymath synthesizing knowledge from multiple traditions? The page's emphasis on bathing or interaction with water combined with astrological positioning hints at complex ideas about health, ritual purification, or the flow of celestial influence. And yet, without a key to the script, every hypothesis remains provisional. The manuscript's author remains invisible, their intentions obscured by the veils of time and undeciphered language. Visual analysis suggests patterns that may point toward meaning even if words fail us. Certain zodiac signs repeat motifs, such as the depiction of water-bearing figures, clusters of flora, or particular hand gestures implying deliberate symbolism. Some researchers suggest these could represent phases of life, seasonal cycles, or the interplay between the cosmos and human physiology. Others note the integration of color and position, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of spatial relationships or even numerical or mathematical encoding. The depth of planning and complexity reinforces the sense that the zodiac section is not decorative but functional, designed to communicate something precise, if now lost to history. And yet every insight generates more questions. Was the zodiac section a guide for practical calculation or a philosophical reflection on the cosmos and human life? Did the author intend it for personal use as a teaching tool, or as an encoded repository for knowledge meant to survive centuries in obscurity? Could the manuscript itself be an experiment in visual language, a hybrid of writing and illustration, anticipating systems of notation that would not appear for centuries? The possibilities are as vast and intricate as the stars themselves, and the manuscript offers no explicit explanation. The zodiac pages, like the rest of the Voynich manuscript, resist closure. They remind us of the limits of our understanding and yet compel us to continue examining, hypothesizing, and imagining. They sit at the intersection of art, science, and mystery, inviting each observer to question what we know about literacy, astrology, symbolism, and the transmission of knowledge. And as we trace the circular constellations and human figures, we are left with the enduring enigma. What system, what mind, and what culture gave rise to this unparalleled expression of human curiosity? And most provocatively of all, what might still be hidden within the zodiac section's spiraling diagrams and inscrutable glyphs waiting for discovery by the patient and imaginative observer? From the circular constellations and cryptic glyphs of the Voynich manuscript, where human ingenuity and celestial observation converge in an enigmatic manuscript, our journey now moves westward once again. This time to the windswept plains of Brittany in northwestern France. Here, stretching across the countryside, lie thousands of standing stones arranged in patterns that have fascinated, perplexed, and inspired generations. The Karnak stones, rows upon rows of megaliths, some stretching for kilometers, rise from the earth, their granite surfaces weathered by millennia of wind, rain, and frost. Yet each stone retains an almost deliberate presence, as if holding memory of the hands and intentions that placed it so long ago. The scale of the Karnak complex is staggering. Estimates suggest more than 3,000 individual stones carefully aligned into rows, dolmens, and tumuli, many of them reaching heights of up to 4 meters. When first encountered, the sight is simultaneously awe-inspiring and disorienting. A forest of stone, both regimented and organic, stretching over rolling fields that seem to ripple under the observer's gaze. How did societies of the Neolithic era, with rudimentary tools and pre-Hiterate traditions, move these massive stones, sometimes weighing several tons, across uneven terrain and arrange them with such uniformity? And why did they invest such labor, care, and scale in a project whose purpose remains tantalizingly opaque? Archaeological study dates the Karnak stones to roughly 4,500 to 3,300 BC, a period that coincides with the rise of complex agrarian communities across Western Europe. Excavations reveal that these stones were quarried locally, shaped with stone hammers, and transported, though exactly how remains a matter of speculation. Some rows are perfectly straight, Others curve gently across valleys and ridges, responding to the topography with an understanding of landscape rarely attributed to societies of the time. Could these alignments have served practical functions such as delineating territory, guiding seasonal agricultural cycles, or marking sacred sites? Or were they purely ceremonial, their meaning now lost beneath the layers of millennia? Mainstream explanations often emphasize ritual and religious significance. Dolmens, burial mounds, and alignments suggest a literary or commemorative purpose, and studies of human remains near some sites indicate ritual activity. Yet, when one examines the sheer scale and pattern of the alignments, other possibilities emerge. Certain rows appear oriented toward the rising sun on solstices, the lunar cycle, or notable star clusters. This has led scholars to suggest that the Karnak stones may have functioned as an early astronomical observatory, allowing Neolithic peoples to track time, celestial events, and seasonal changes. But the evidence is fragmentary, and exact methods or purposes remain speculative. Speculative theories extend into more audacious territory. Some researchers propose that the alignments encode sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, geometry, or even proto-mathematics far beyond what we typically associate with early farming societies. Others suggest symbolic or cosmological interpretations that the stones represent the movement of spirits, gods, or celestial forces encoded in the landscape for ritual or spiritual purposes. French theories, while less grounded in archaeological evidence, have posited connections to lost civilizations, extraterrestrial contact, or energy grids embedded in the Earth itself. While these ideas may stretch credulity, they underscore the magnetism of the site and its ability to provoke curiosity and imagination across generations. The stones themselves provide subtle but telling clues where patterns in lichen growth suggest they have remained largely undisturbed for thousands of years. Yet traces of deliberate shaping indicate careful human labor. Some stones bear cut marks and carvings, the meaning of which remains uncertain. Others are isolated, while many are arranged in lines or clusters that imply spatial understanding, a keen sense of rhythm, and a sophisticated awareness of landscape and horizon. Could these placements reflect an advanced understanding of sight lines, angles, and movement through space? And if so, how did Neolithic communities develop and transmit such knowledge without formalized mathematics or written notation? Field observation reinforces the sense of mystery. From different vantage points along the alignments, the stones appear to shift in rhythm with the terrain, their positions framing the horizon, valleys, and ridges in a way that suggests both aesthetic and functional design. Researchers using satellite imagery and topographical mapping have confirmed that certain rows align with solar solstices and lunar standstills, yet many lines do not fit neatly into any known astronomical pattern. Are these anomalies the result of cultural symbolism, incomplete knowledge, or simply erosion and alteration over thousands of years? The answer remains elusive. The Karnak stones also invite reflection on human labor, collaboration, and ingenuity. Moving and erecting thousands of massive stones would have required coordinated effort, social organization, and ingenuity in engineering. How did Neolithic communities plan, allocate resources, and maintain motivation over generations to complete such projects? And why, after centuries of effort, did the cultural knowledge surrounding their purpose fade, leaving behind only the stones themselves as silent witnesses? Oral histories and regional folklore add texture, but not clarity. Local legends describe giants, spirits, or ancient kings as architects of the stones, weaving myth into memory. While these accounts cannot serve as empirical evidence, they demonstrate the enduring power of the site to capture human imagination. The stones themselves, unyielding and patient, stand as intermediaries between the tangible and the symbolic, the observable and the unknowable. In contemplating the Karnak complex, one confronts the tension between empirical archaeology and the intangible essence of human expression. Each stone is a question, each row a riddle of labor, intention, and cultural meaning. Like the Zodiac section of the Voynich manuscript or the Plain of Jars, the Karnak stones remind us that human curiosity and ingenuity often leave traces that challenge easy explanation. They endure across millennia as silent teachers, encouraging careful observation, reflection, and wonder. And so, as one walks among the megaliths, tracing the lines across fields and hills, one is left with questions that resist definitive answers. How did these people achieve such precision, scale, and vision? What knowledge guided their labor? and how much of it has been lost to time. Were the stones purely ceremonial, astronomically functional, or both? And most intriguingly, what deeper understanding of the cosmos, of human society, and of ritual expression might remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for the patient and perceptive observer to uncover? The Karnak stones stand resolute, their alignment with the heavens and the earth, both familiar and mysterious, inviting reflection on the ingenuity, belief, and ambition of those who shape them, and the enduring mysteries they embody. From the wind-swept fields of Brittany, where the Karnak stones reach toward the heavens with silent precision, our journey now crosses the Atlantic, deep into the frozen expanses of northern Canada. There, along the desolate shores of Lake Onjikuni and Nunavut, lies a mystery whispered across generations. A village once inhabited that seemingly vanished without a trace. The landscape itself is austere. Endless stretches of tundra dotted with sparse spruce and birch. Frozen lakes reflecting pale sunlight and snow-carpeted hills stretching into the horizon. It is a land of extremes where survival requires intimate knowledge of the environment. And yet within this remote wilderness, an enduring puzzle has persisted, challenging both imagination and reason. The story begins with accounts from the early 20th century, most famously recorded by fur trapper Joe Label in 1930. Label, traveling his usual circuit across the region, arrived at the village along Lake Onjikuni to find an eerie stillness. Smoke did not rise from chimneys, dogs did not bark, and the wind carried no voices. Buildings remained standing, structures intact, hunting tools and personal belongings left behind. Yet the villagers themselves had disappeared. According to reports, the scene was almost surreal. Food left to spoil, clothing and homes, even personal items abandoned in haste. The level of incompleteness suggested a sudden departure, one too abrupt to be explained by ordinary migration or seasonal movement. Historical records confirm that small Inuit communities had long inhabited the region, their lives intimately tied to the land, hunting patterns, and seasonal cycles. Archaeological surveys reveal evidence of long-term habitation, including stone caches, sod houses, and other remnants consistent with early 20th century Inuit life. Yet when Leal's accounts surfaced, they described an anomaly, a disappearance so complete that it defied natural explanation. Mainstream historians suggest the possibility of misreporting or exaggeration, noting the harsh conditions and limited verification in such remote areas. Yet the allure of the story has endured precisely because of its ambiguity, its blending of the ordinary and the inexplicably strange. Many explanations have been proposed, ranging from the plausible to the extraordinary. One theory posits that a sudden epidemic could have decimated the population, forcing survivors to flee in haste. Harsh winters, shortages of game, or conflicts with other groups could also have contributed. Yet, these explanations struggle to account for the meticulous preservation of the village's structures and belongings. Would an entire community abandon its homes and tools without taking anything of value? How could such a rapid exodus occur in a place where survival depended on careful planning, hunting, and preparation for harsh conditions? Speculative and fringe interpretations extend the mystery further. Some suggest paranormal involvement, that the villagers were abducted by forces beyond human comprehension, leaving their physical world behind. Others propose encounters with unknown aerial phenomena or otherworldly entities, invoking imagery of sudden disappearance common to folklore and modern myth. While these ideas cannot be substantiated, they illustrate the human fascination with events that resist conventional understanding and the ways in which the environment itself, the frozen lakes, endless tundra, and isolation enhances the narrative tension. Physical evidence adds nuance but no certainty. Modern expeditions to the area find remnants of settlements consistent with Inuit habitation, yet no trace of a mass disappearance is verifiable through archaeology alone. Oral histories from regional communities recall movements of families, seasonal migrations, and encounters with outsiders. Yet, none provide a definitive record of the Onjikuni vanishing. The landscape itself seems complicit in the mystery. Snow and ice conceal paths, erode evidence, and create optical illusions that may reinforce stories of sudden absence. Yet, the consistency of accounts across decades suggests that something remarkable occurred, even if the full explanation remains elusive. The psychological dimension of the story is equally compelling. What does it mean for a community to vanish so completely, leaving behind the ordinary markers of daily life? How do we interpret a scene where human presence is palpable in its artifacts but absent in flesh and voice? In contemplating the Lake Anjukuni story, one is confronted with the fragility of human existence, the precariousness of survival in extreme environments, and the limits of our understanding of historical events that unfold beyond immediate observation. Modern researchers have attempted to contextualize the disappearance using climatology, anthropology, and ethnography. Recordings of harsh weather patterns, predator movements, and migratory behavior suggest that extreme environmental events could explain partial relocations. Yet none of these approaches fully reconciles the suddenness and completeness described in the earliest reports. Could there have been social or cultural factors that prompted a rapid evacuation, ritual, conflict, or intergroup diplomacy? Or do we confront a scenario in which a natural event, human decision, and misinterpretation of distance and time combine to produce a story that remains part fact, part legend? Walking the shores of Lake Anjukuni today, the silence is tangible. The water mirrors the pale sky, broken only by the occasional ripple of fish or movement of birds. Remnants of human habitation, stone caches, moss-covered sod walls hint at the lives once lived here. Tools, hunting gear, and domestic objects scattered across the landscape remind observers that the ordinary rhythms of life existed. And yet, the extraordinary question lingers: where did these people go and why? The lake, frozen or thawing depending on the season, seems to hold the answer just beneath its reflective surface, yet time, wind, and human memory conceal it from view. The vanishing of the Lake Anjukuni village embodies a tension found across history's most enduring mysteries, the interplay between the observable, the recorded, and the inexplicable. Like the Zodiac section of the Voyage manuscript, the Plain of Jars or the Karak stones, this story invites reflection on human presence, ingenuity, and impermanence. It forces us to confront our assumptions about what can vanish and what persists, and to consider how ordinary life can intersect with extraordinary events that leave only traces behind. And so, as we contemplate the barren tundra, the abandoned sod huts, and the still waters of Lake Anjukuni, we are left with the haunting question that defines this mystery. How can a community disappear so completely, leaving the evidence of their existence intact, yet themselves absent? What combination of natural, social, or perhaps unknown forces could produce such an outcome? And as we peer into the icy landscape, tracing the contours of hills and lakes that have witnessed generations of human endeavor, we are reminded that some mysteries remain deliberately unfinished, preserved in the intersection of memory, landscape, and the limits of human understanding. The Lake Anjukuni vanishing continues to invite observation, speculation, and wonder. An enduring enigma that challenges our expectations of time, place, and human presence. From the icy silence of Lake Anjukuni, where an entire village may have vanished without a trace, our exploration now carries us across oceans to the subtropical waters off the southern coast of Japan, where a different kind of enigma lies hidden beneath the waves. Just off Yonaguni Island, scuba divers in the late 20th century discovered what appeared to be monumental stone terraces submerged beneath the Pacific. Their sheer scale and precision raises immediate questions about origin, purpose, and human ingenuity. At first glance, the formations resemble a stepped pyramid, complete with flat platforms, sharp angles, and long linear grooves carved into massive slabs of sandstone. Yet the ocean has held these terraces for millennia, obscuring them with silt, coral growth, and the slow erosion of tides, making definitive answers as elusive as the deep itself. The terraces are striking in their scale and regularity. Some platforms stretch over 20 memes in length, while edges and corners form almost perfect right angles. Grooves and channels cut into the rock hint at deliberate shaping. From above, aerial photographs reveal patterns that suggest order and design. Parallel lines, tiered steps, and large flat surfaces reminiscent of architectural planning. The initial discovery sparked excitement, as many wondered if the structures represented evidence of a previously unknown ancient civilization capable of monumental construction tens of meters below sea level. The challenge, however, is separating human handiwork from natural geological processes in an environment where time, water, and tectonics continuously reshape the landscape. Geologists and archaeologists have debated the terrace's origin for decades. Mainstream explanations argue that the formations are primarily natural products of tectonic uplift. sedimentary layering and fracturing along horizontal plains. The region sits near the convergence of the Philippine Sea Plate and the Eurasian Plate, an area of significant seismic activity. Proponents of the natural formation theory suggest that the terrace's straight lines and steps could result from a combination of horizontal strata, erosion by currents, and the fracturing of sandstone under stress. Yet the precision of some features, sharp angles, perfectly flat surfaces, and intersecting grooves challenges this explanation. Could nature alone produce such geometric regularity on this scale? Speculative and alternative theories offer a different perspective. Some researchers argue that the terraces are indeed the remnants of a submerged city constructed during a period of lower sea levels in the late plain, perhaps 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. In this scenario, the platforms may have served as foundations for buildings, ceremonial spaces, or defensive structures now swallowed by rising seas after the last ice age. Supporters of this hypothesis point to the alignment of certain features, evidence of tool marks observed on rock faces, and occasional nearby artifacts, including stone axes and pottery fragments. Though dating these objects conclusively has proven difficult, the question of tools is central to the debate. If the terraces are man-made, what kind of technology could have created them? Critics note the absence of large-scale chisels, hammers, or other implements, arguing that even primitive stone tools would struggle to shape such dense sandstone with the precision observed. Advocates counter that small repeated efforts over generations combined with techniques adapted to available materials could have produced the terraces incrementally. Could the builders have used abrasive stones, wooden wedges, or other methods now lost to history? And if so, what level of planning and social organization would have been required to coordinate such a massive endeavor? Explorers and divers report intriguing anomalies that resist simple geological explanation. Certain terraces appear to interlock, forming pathways or staircases. Large rectangular platforms are aligned along axes that some argue correspond to astronomical markers echoing patterns observed at megalithic sites like the Carrick stones or the Plain of Jars. Grooves resembling channels or conduits may have directed water, hinting at drainage, irrigation, or ritual use. Even the surrounding topography, a series of ridges and nearby submerged rock formations, suggests intentional placement rather than purely random occurrence. Yet skeptics caution against overinterpretation, noting that human perception often seeks patterns where none were intended. The terrace's underwater environment further complicates investigation. Coral growth obscures details. Tides shift sediment, and diving conditions limit observation time. High-resolution mapping and sonar have revealed additional platforms, fissures, and features that deepen the mystery. Yet, no definitive artifacts conclusively date the site or confirm human involvement. Some suggest that erosion patterns mimic human design so convincingly that even trained observers may misinterpret them, while others argue that subtle marks, intersections of grooves, flatness of steps, and angles of corners cannot be explained by geology alone. The Yonani terraces evoke profound questions about human history, ingenuity, and survival. If these structures are man-made, they challenge assumptions about the capabilities of prehistory societies in East Asia, suggesting advanced knowledge of geometry, construction, and coastal adaptation far earlier than previously recognized. If they are natural, they nonetheless remind us that the Earth itself can create astonishing forms that mimic human intention, blurring the line between natural wonder and human achievement. In either case, the terraces force a reconsideration of how we define intelligence, labor, and design when examining the deep past. Cultural and mythological perspectives add another dimension. Some local legends speak of sunken cities, ancestral spirits, or sacred sites beneath the waves, reinforcing the idea that the terraces were significant in collective memory, whether or not their creation was human. These stories underscore the symbolic power of place and the intersection of observation, interpretation, and imagination, reminding us that human experience is as much shaped by meaning as by physical evidence. Standing above the site today, gazing down through crystal-clear waters and calm conditions, one can sense the quiet magnitude of what lies below. The terraces stretch outward, their scale both humbling and intimidating, inviting the observer to trace lines, platforms, and grooves with eyes and imagination. The mystery remains unresolved. Are these terraces an architectural achievement lost to rising seas, or are they an extraordinary illustration of the Earth's natural artistry? And even if human hands did shape them, what knowledge, social organization, and cultural imperatives motivated such an undertaking so far back in time, leaving only stone beneath the waves as evidence? The Unani terraces, like the vanished village of Lake Anjikuni, the Karnak stones, or the zodiac pages of the Voynich manuscript, embody the tension between the known and the unknown, between human endeavor and the forces of nature. They invite contemplation, research, and speculation, yet resist definitive answers. They are reminders of how much remains hidden beneath oceans, frozen lands, and sands, waiting for observation, patience, and insight. And as we float above the submerged platforms, the terraces standing silently beneath the Pacific, we are left with one enduring question: how much of human history remains concealed beneath water, time, and geological transformation? And what secrets might still be waiting to emerge from the depths, challenging everything we think we know about our past? From the sunken terraces off Unani, where stone seems to dance between the hands of human intention and the sculpting forces of the ocean, our exploration now moves across both sea and time to the Mediterranean, to a discovery that would forever change our understanding of ancient ingenuity. In 1901, sponge divers off the Greek island of Antithur stumbled upon the remains of a shipwreck dating to the 1st century BC. Among the corroded hull, statues, and amphi lay fragments of a bronze and wooden device whose complexity defied all expectations: the Antithera mechanism. At first glance, the surviving gears and plates seemed almost ordinary, rusted, fragmented, and silent. But careful study would reveal a machine whose sophistication rivaled devices thought impossible until the 18th century. The mechanism is compact, roughly the size of a shoebox, yet within it lies a universe of interlocking gears, dials, and inscriptions. X-ray imaging and advanced 3D reconstruction have revealed dozens of meshing bronze gears, some with teeth so precisely cut that they suggest an understanding of mathematics and engineering far ahead of its time. Circular plates display scales, marks, and enigmatic Greek inscriptions that appear to track the motions of the sun, moon, and planets along with lunar phases and eclipses. Yet for all its clarity, the mechanism is incomplete. Key components are missing, fragments are corroded, and the original configuration is subject to debate. What knowledge did the missing gears contain, and what might they reveal about the intellectual ambitions of its creators? Historical context frames the mystery in striking relief. The mechanism likely dates to around 150 to 100 BC, a period of flourishing hedonistic science, philosophy, and engineering. Greek astronomers like Hipparchus had developed precise observations of planetary motion, and mathematicians were exploring the geometry of celestial cycles. Yet no other known device from the ancient world approaches this level of mechanical complexity. Was the mechanism a one-of-a-kind creation, a personal project of a brilliant mind, or part of a broader tradition of technological craftsmanship now lost to time? Scholars have long debated its function. Mainstream interpretations suggest it served as an astronomical computer capable of predicting eclipses, charting planetary positions, and modeling the irregularities of the moon's motion with extraordinary precision. The surviving inscriptions describe months, zodiac signs, and cycles such as the Platonic cycle, which reconciles solar and lunar calendars. Yet, because key components are missing, its full capabilities remain speculative. Could it also have tracked planetary conjunctions, forecast celestial events decades in advance, or served a cylindrical and navigational purpose for sailors and scholars? The missing components lie at the heart of the debate. Some reconstructions suggest the mechanism once contained additional gears that could model the motions of Mercury and Venus. Others hypothesize hidden dials or pointers that would have displayed information lost to history. Without these pieces, every reconstruction is partially conjectural. The absence is not simply physical. It obscures understanding of the intended application and scope of the device. What mathematical principles guided the creation of the lost gears, and how might their design change our perception of ancient scientific knowledge? Speculative interpretations extend beyond functionality to the realm of innovation and culture. Some researchers propose that the natural mechanism represents a convergence of philosophy, astronomy, and religion, a tangible manifestation of the cosmos, a mechanical reflection of a universe observed, calculated, and perhaps venerated. Others suggest it may have served as a teaching device, a model to demonstrate celestial patterns to scholars or apprentices rather than as a tool for practical computation. Fringe theories even posit connections to forgotten technological traditions, asserting that its precision implies knowledge or methods that vanished alongside other genetic engineering marvels. Material analysis contributes further intrigue. The bronze gears and plates exhibit a craftsmanship that implies not only knowledge of metallurgy, but also precision in measurement and tool use, including gear teeth cut with uniformity unprecedented for the period. The corroded wooden casing hints at a carefully constructed framework supporting components whose layout was crucial for accurate function. Could the missing parts have included additional gearing, pointers, or inscriptions whose absence obscures a system of knowledge that would rival any device in history? The antique mechanism also raises questions about human perception of technological progress. Its sophistication demonstrates that advanced engineering existed far earlier than commonly acknowledged. Yet centuries of historical record contain no other comparable artifact. Was this an isolated achievement, a singular marvel lost in antiquity? Or does it hint at a wider, unrecorded tradition of technological ingenuity? And if so, what might have caused such knowledge to disappear, leaving only fragments for modern scholars to puzzle over? Every fragment recovered tells part of the story, yet every missing piece amplifies the mystery. The device challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies and the continuity of technological knowledge. It forces us to reconsider what is possible without modern tools and to confront the limitations of historical preservation. How much has been irretrievably lost to corrosion, shipwrecks, and the passage of time? And perhaps most compellingly, what secrets did those missing gears contain about the cosmos, human ingenuity, and the intellectual ambitions of a civilization long gone? Standing before the reconstructed models in museums or studying the fragments under the glow of X-ray tomography, one is struck by a sense of both wonder and humility. The anteather mechanism embodies the intersection of human curiosity, meticulous craftsmanship, and the enigmas of time. It reminds us that history is never fully revealed. Every artifact holds gaps, every discovery invites interpretation, and every absence can be as telling as the presence of bronze and wood. And so, as we contemplate the gears, the inscriptions, and the shadowy space left by missing components, we are left with questions that endure across millennia. What exactly did this machine measure, predict, or explain? How were the missing parts intended to interact with the surviving elements? And what insights about ancient astronomy and mathematics have we yet to uncover? The mechanism silent beneath its glass case challenges us to reconcile the known and the unknown, the fragmentary and the complete, and to wonder what knowledge of the cosmos humanity may once have possessed and what still remains hidden, waiting for patient minds to discover it. From the intricate gears of the anti-thero mechanism, which hint at lost knowledge and vanished components, our exploration now returns to a more modern era, but one no less mysterious. In the quiet town of Oakville, Washington, in the early months of 1994, residents encountered an event that would leave them puzzled, alarmed, and searching for answers. Unlike the ancient enigmas of bronze and stone, this phenomenon was alive, gelatinous, and falling from the sky. Strange blobs of unknown origin that seemed to defy explanation. The Oakville Blobs incident remains one of the most unsettling and bizarre events of the late 20th century. A case where ordinary life collided with the inexplicable in the most intimate way. Oakville itself is a small community nestled in the rolling hills of western Washington, with dense forests, winding rivers, and quiet streets lined with modest homes. In late March 1994, residents began noticing unusual occurrences. After a night of heavy rainfall, gelatinous translucent blobs began appearing on windows, roofs, and lawns. Some were small, almost jelly-like droplets. Others were larger, clinging to trees, fences, and even cars. Witnesses described the material as sticky, slightly melodous, and oddly resilient to the elements. When collected, these samples revealed a texture unlike anything encountered before, gelatinous, sometimes fibrous, and partially decomposing, yet exhibiting an uncanny consistency across multiple samples. Medical reports soon added an unsettling dimension. People who had come into contact with the blobs reported a range of symptoms: nausea, dizziness, and flu-like conditions. Some developed more severe reactions, including temporary vision disturbances or gastrointestinal distress. Local physicians were baffled. The material did not match any known environmental contaminant, nor did it correspond to any familiar biological or chemical agent. Samples were sent to multiple laboratories and analysis confirmed the presence of bacterial colonies, primarily Pseudomonas aeruginosa, common in soil and water, but unusual in this context. Could these organisms have thrived in a previously unknown medium? Or was the substance a host for something else entirely? Mainstream investigations considered several plausible explanations. One theory suggested that the blobs were remnants of airborne jellyfish-like organisms carried by ocean currents and deposited by rain or atmospheric disturbance. Another posited that they were byproducts of a chemical spill or industrial waste, though no corroborating evidence emerged from local factories or processing plants. A third proposed natural phenomena, mucus secreted by terrestrial slugs, algae, or cyanobacteria dispersed during wet weather. Each explanation accounted for some characteristics, but failed to fully reconcile the combination of airborne deposition, consistency across multiple samples, and the sudden onset of human symptoms. Speculative interpretations ventured further into the extraordinary. Some residents suggested extraterrestrial involvement, proposing that the blobs were biological material delivered from unknown craft or celestial bodies. Others argued for secret military experiments, possibly involving biological agents released inadvertently into the environment. While no concrete evidence supports these claims, they reflect the human tendency to seek patterns, causes, and agency when confronted with phenomena that resist ordinary understanding. Could the Oakville blobs represent a natural anomaly so rare that our scientific frameworks cannot yet accommodate it? Or do they hint at interactions with forces, natural or otherwise, that remain largely unobserved? Chemical and biological analysis has provided partial insights but never closure. Laboratory examination revealed that the material was rich in protein and contained bacteria consistent with environmental contamination, yet its gelatinous matrix remained inexplicable. Some samples retained microscopic structures suggestive of cellular organization, but no definitive classification emerged. Could these have been living organisms adapted to extreme conditions? Or were they organic remnants transformed by weather, bacteria, and rainwater in ways that defy typical categorization? And if so, what broader implications might such phenomena have for understanding environmental biology, airborne pathogens, or unexplored microbial processes? Probial Pro. Eyewitness accounts add a deeply human element to the mystery. Families recall collecting the blobs in jars, observing their strange textures and discussing them late into the night. Children played cautiously near the falling gelatin, while adults debated the seriousness of the event. Many photographs, videos, and samples were taken, yet none resolved the fundamental question: what exactly had fallen from the sky? Even decades later, those who witnessed the incident remember the sensation of something alien, yet intimately present touching the roofs and windows of their homes. Bridging the ordinary with the unexplainable, the Oakville blobs highlight an intersection of observation, scientific inquiry, and human perception. Unlike the Antiqua mechanism, where missing components invite speculation about purpose and knowledge, the blobs confront us with uncertainty in real time, a mystery experienced collectively by an entire community. They challenge assumptions about the natural world, about airborne phenomena, and about the ways environmental and biological systems interact in ways we may barely understand. And they remind us that even in a world of advanced technology and scientific methodology, there remain events that resist explanation. Evoking both awe and apprehension, the incident also raises broader philosophical questions about the boundaries of known and unknown. How do we classify a phenomenon that is partially understood but ultimately ambiguous? How much of the natural world and the interactions between biological, chemical, and atmospheric systems remains hidden from observation? Could phenomena like the Oakville blobs occur elsewhere without notice? Their traces washed away by rain or overlooked by human observers? And what does it mean when ordinary towns inhabited by ordinary people suddenly find themselves at the center of a mystery that challenges the very frameworks through which we interpret reality? Standing in Oakville today, one can imagine the drizzle of 1994, the gelatinous droplets clinging to rooftops, the quiet unease of residents discovering the unknown in their everyday lives. The mystery endures not only in the gelatin itself, but in the questions it raises about the limits of science, the unexpected quirks of nature, and the way human perception encounters events beyond comprehension. The Oakville blobs remain a reminder that even in the modern world where observation, technology, and data are abundant, The universe can surprise, unsettle, and inspire wonder, forcing us to confront phenomena that lie just beyond the edges of understanding, waiting for patient inquiry and open minds to explore their hidden truths. From the gelatinous mystery of Oakville, Washington, where the skies seem to deliver the inexplicable, we now travel to the arid plains of southern Peru, where the desert heat preserves secrets in its soil and windswept sands reveal fragments of the extraordinary. Among the vast Nazar region, famed for its enigmatic geoglyphs that stretch across the desert floor, a far more startling discovery has emerged in recent years. Mummified remains are unlike any known human form. Dubbed the Nazca tridactyl mummies, these specimens are small in stature with elongated skulls, delicate torsos, and most notably, 3 fingers on each hand, a feature that immediately challenges conventional anthropological understanding. The find, controversial and heavily scrutinized, has sparked debate that crosses the boundaries of archaeology, biology, and public imagination. The mummies were reportedly recovered from caves and burial sites near the Nazca lines, their fragile bodies preserved by the extreme dryness of the desert. Initial examinations suggest that the skin, bone, and soft tissues exhibit preservation, unusual even for mummies in this region, retaining intricate details of musculature, cartilage, and cranial structure. Their heads are elongated with pronounced cranial vaults, while the hands and feet display 3 elongated digits, each tapering to a slender point. The overall anatomy hints at a humanoid form, yet diverges sharply from any recognized human morphology, raising questions about evolution, genetics, and the scope of variation in ancient populations. Mainstream skepticism is immediate and sustained. Critics argue that the elongated skulls could be the result of artificial cranial deformation, a practice documented among various pre-Columbian cultures in Peru, where infants' heads were bound to produce ritualized shapes. The 3-fingered hands, however, remain difficult to explain within known practices of post-mortem modification or congenital deformities. Could natural anomalies produce such consistent tridactyl morphology across multiple specimens? Or does this suggest a lineage entirely outside the Homo sapiens classification? DNA analysis, though in its early stages, promises partial insight, yet has been contested, with some claiming contamination, incomplete sequencing, or ambiguous results that fuel continued debate. Archaeological context provides tantalizing but inconclusive clues. The mummies are often found in small groups within shallow graves, sometimes accompanied by artifacts reminiscent of Nazca material culture, textiles, pottery fragments, and ceremonial objects. This association suggests intentional burial practices implying recognition of the dead as sentient beings worthy of ritual treatment. Yet the combination of alien morphology and familiar cultural artifacts presents a paradox. Were these beings a variant human population, a hitherto unknown hominid species coexisting with ancient civilizations? Or is there a more extraordinary explanation, one that challenges the very assumptions of biology and anthropology? Scientific examination has revealed both clarity and ambiguity. Radiocarbon dating places the specimens roughly between 245 and 410 A contemporaneous with the early phases of the Nazca culture. Advanced imaging techniques, including CT scans and 3D reconstructions, show internal anatomy that mirrors certain human skeletal structures. Rib cages, spinal columns, and pelvic structures follow recognizable patterns. Yet deviations, particularly in cranial shape and limb proportions, are pronounced. Some researchers suggest these may represent mutations, environmental adaptations, or even an undiscovered branch of human evolution. Others caution that anomalies may be exaggerated by decomposition, mummification, or handling, emphasizing the need for rigorous peer-reviewed study. Speculative interpretations have captured global attention. Fringe theories propose that the mummies represent extraterrestrial visitors, intentionally integrated into local burial practices or hybrids of unknown origin. Others suggest that they may be remnants of a secretive genetically divergent human population, isolated and unrecorded in historical texts. While evidence for such claims is contested, the very persistence of these questions highlights the profound impact of the discovery. It forces reconsideration of what is possible in the prehistoric record and challenges assumptions about the limits of human anatomical variation. Ethnographic and mythological parallels add further intrigue. Local legends describe strange beings descending from the sky or dwelling in remote highland caves, sometimes interacting with the Naza people. teaching them arts, crafts, or astronomy. While these stories cannot serve as empirical evidence, they contextualize the mummies within a broader cultural imagination, suggesting that encounters with beings of unusual form may have been encoded into oral histories and ceremonial practices. Could the tridactyl morphology have inspired or been inspired by myth, leaving an imprint on collective memory that echoes across centuries? Chemical and genetic testing remains key to unraveling the mystery. Preliminary DNA sequences reveal markers similar to human lineages, yet with mutations not commonly observed in modern populations. The potential for contamination, misinterpretation, or incomplete data complicates efforts to draw firm conclusions. If these are indeed human, what circumstances produce such stark anatomical divergence? If they are not human, what other hominid or biological lineage could plausibly account for their characteristics in a desert ecosystem shared with Nazca peoples? The controversy is amplified by public fascination and media attention. Sensationalized claims of alien origins have drawn both criticism and curiosity, while serious scientific studies continue in parallel, careful to distinguish fact from speculation. The tension between sensationalism and scholarship mirrors the broader challenge of interpreting evidence that sits at the edge of known science. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary rigor, yet the compelling nature of the findings compels ongoing investigation. Observing the mummies, whether in photographs, 3D scans, or in situ, evokes a profound sense of mystery. Their presence confronts us with the limitations of human knowledge. We are able to date, scan, and classify, yet remain uncertain about the essential question of identity. Like the Oakville blobs, the Anoni terraces, or the Anteather mechanism, these remains remind us that the world, ancient or modern, retains phenomena that resist categorization, calling for curiosity, patience, and humility in equal measure. And so, as we contemplate the NASA tridactyl mummies, their elongated heads casting shadows across desert sands, their three-fingered hands poised in silent enigma, we are left with enduring questions. What species or subspecies do these beings represent? How did they live, interact, and ultimately come to be buried among familiar artifacts of Nazca culture? And most hauntingly, what secrets remain hidden in the desert, waiting to challenge our assumptions about human history, biological diversity, and the boundaries between myth and reality? The Nazca mummies, like all the mysteries we have explored, from Dyatlov Pass to Oakville, from Karnak to Yanani, invite observation, speculation, and wonder, reminding us that the past is never fully known, and that some truths remain tantalizingly just out of reach. From the arid sands of southern Peru, where mummies with 3 fingers challenge our understanding of human biology, our journey now moves across continents to the remote deserts of central Saudi Arabia. There, scattered among the rolling dunes and rocky plateaus of the Tema region, stands one of the most perplexing natural or perhaps unnatural formations ever recorded, the Al-Nasla rock. At first glance, it appears as a massive sandstone boulder weathered by centuries of wind and sun. Yet one striking feature immediately captures attention. A perfectly straight, razor-thin fissure slices through the center of the stone, extending from top to bottom with such precision that it seems less the result of erosion and more the deliberate work of a tool perfectly aligned and meticulously executed. The Al-Nasla rock sits in isolation atop a low plateau. Its surface is pockmarked with typical weathering patterns yet dominated by the central split. The fissure is almost impossibly straight, its edges smooth running from one side of the monolith to the other without the jagged irregularities common in natural fractures. From certain angles, sunlight casts shadows along the split that exaggerate its linear perfection, creating the illusion that the rock has been sliced cleanly by a giant blade. Visitors and researchers alike report a visceral reaction when standing before it. The contrast between the stone's rugged natural texture and the flawless precision of the split creates a sense of awe, a feeling that nature alone might not have been capable of this degree of exactness. Geologists who have studied the site generally consider the formation to be natural, the product of a combination of weathering, internal stresses, and mineral composition within the sandstone. The rock consists largely of sedimentary layers with natural planes of weakness and thermal expansion. Freeze-thaw cycles and long-term wind erosion could conceivably cause a fracture along these planes. However, the linearity and smoothness of the split defy easy explanation. Could a natural process produce a fissure that runs perfectly straight without deviation for several meters? And if so, how many millennia of weathering would it require to achieve this level of apparent precision? Alternative perspectives suggest a more deliberate origin. Some archaeologists and enthusiasts speculate that the split may have been the result of ancient human intervention, a feat of engineering that required knowledge of leverage, tools, and perhaps techniques now lost to time. Could prehistoric builders have found a way to separate sandstone with incredible accuracy using stone, metal, or even fire-based methods? If so, what purpose might such a division have served? Ritual, measurement, symbolism, and why would this knowledge disappear from historical records, leaving only a silent boulder as evidence? The split's precision has also inspired speculative and fringe theories. Some propose that advanced tools or technologies, perhaps even of extraterrestrial origin, could account for the perfect linearity. Others suggest that natural seismic activity might have exploited an inherent weakness in the stone, producing a crack so uniform it appears intentional. Yet in the absence of direct evidence, tools, inscriptions, or records, these remain conjectural. What is undeniable, however, is the effect of the split. It conveys an aesthetic and mathematical harmony that is rare in natural rock formations, one that sparks the imagination and invites inquiry. Closer observation reveals subtle details that further complicate explanation. Tiny grooves along the edges of the fissure suggest that the stone may have been worn down over time, but the overall straightness persists. The fracture extends entirely through the boulder, maintaining consistent width and angle, a phenomenon that even modern stone cutting would struggle to replicate without advanced equipment. Nearby rocks in the area show no similar splits, suggesting that whatever caused the Al-Nasla fissure was localized or uniquely conditioned. Could there be unknown geological processes at play, or does the boulder's singularity hint at deliberate human or otherwise intelligent action? The debate also touches on cultural and historical context. The surrounding desert contains traces of ancient trade routes, petroglyphs, and stone canneries, indicating that humans have long interacted with this landscape. Some suggest that the Al-Nasla rock may have served as a landmark or ceremonial object, its dramatic split intentionally created to signify territorial, spiritual, or navigational meaning. Yet no inscriptions, artifacts, or documentation link human activity directly to the fissure, leaving room for both geological and speculative interpretations. How might ancient peoples perceive such a formation? And what significance would they attribute to a stone seemingly sliced with impossible accuracy? The Al-Nasla rock exemplifies the tension between natural wonder and human perception. Its flawless fissure challenges observers to distinguish between improbable natural occurrence and deliberate construction. It mirrors other enigmatic sites we have explored, from the submerged terraces of Yanoni to the perfectly preserved gears of the Anticha mechanism. In each case, we are confronted with objects that defy immediate explanation and invite a careful, methodical investigation that balances skepticism with curiosity. Environmental factors also play a role in preserving the rock's appearance. The desert climate, dry, windy, and largely free from the chemical erosion that might otherwise degrade sandstone, has allowed the split to remain strikingly well-defined for centuries, if not millennia. Seasonal temperature fluctuations continue to act on the stone, yet the linear fissure persists, a testament either to the strength of natural forces or to the meticulous care of unknown hands. Could this interplay between time, climate, and geology itself produce forms that seem almost designed yet are entirely natural? Standing before the Al-Nasla rock today, the split draws the eye like a wound frozen in stone, a line that divides yet observation and interpretation. Its mystery endures, prompting questions about the capabilities of ancient societies, the power of natural forces, and the ways in which human cognition interprets precision. Is it a marvel of geology, a message left by an ancient civilization, or something even stranger, an artifact that invites reflection on the intersection of nature, intention, and perception? The rock remains silent, yet it speaks to all who approach it about time, force, and the enigma of creation. Like the Nazca mummies, the Oakville blobs, or the Antiethra mechanism, it reminds us that even in a world increasingly mapped and cataloged, there are still sites that defy classification, that demand patience and imagination to understand, and that leave us with questions that may never be fully answered. And as the desert sun shifts, casting long shadows along the razor-thin fissure. We are left to wonder, how was such perfection achieved?
And what other secrets might the Earth conceal, silently waiting for those willing to look closely enough to notice? From the razor-thin precision of the Al-Nasla rock fissure, where stone seems to defy both gravity and chance, our journey returns to the waters off southern Japan to the submerged terraces of Yonani. These formations, carved in stepped platforms and angular structures beneath the Pacific waves, have long provoked debate. Are they natural sedimentary features shaped by erosion or remnants of a sunken civilization deliberately constructed and lost to the sea? Yet beneath the terraces lies a deeper mystery, one less visible and even more elusive. The claimed subterranean caverns of Yonani, a hidden network of chambers and passages lying beneath the ocean floor. The first divers to explore the terraces reported glimpses of openings, dark recesses in the rock beyond the illuminated reach of their flashlights. These voids suggest tunnels or caverns, some appearing to extend for meters into the bedrock, with walls smoothed in places, hinting at potential human shaping. The floor of these spaces is littered with sand and debris stirred by ocean currents. Yet the contours appear unusually regular, inviting speculation. Could these be natural fissures sculpted over millennia by water and seismic activity? Or are they evidence of an architectural vision, one submerged by rising seas or tectonic shifts? Geological studies provide context, though not answers. The Yonani Formation consists largely of sandstone and mudstone layered in inclined strata. Underwater currents, seasonal typhoons, and earthquakes have sculpted the terrain, producing fractures, terraces, and angular blocks. Yet the alignment and geometry of the terraces, coupled with the claimed caverns, remain difficult to explain purely through erosion. Straight walls, flat floors, and right angles suggest intentional modification. Could the same forces that formed the terraces have also carved underground chambers? Or do the caverns represent a separate phenomenon, a labyrinth concealed beneath the more visible structures? Eyewitness accounts from divers add to the intrigue. Swimmers describe entering the darker recesses and encountering sudden drops, hollow echoes, and spaces that open like chambers. Some report encountering stone pillars within these caverns, a vertical support that seemed to rise from floor to ceiling with geometric consistency. Others note carvings or grooves along the walls that resemble tool marks. Yet visibility underwater is limited, and sediment clouds quickly disperse light, making measurements and observations difficult. The caverns, if they exist, as reported, are not easily documented, leaving room for both skepticism and wonder. Speculative interpretations range widely. Proponents of human construction suggest that the caverns could have served as storage rooms, ceremonial chambers, or even dwellings for an ancient coastal population submerged during post-glacial sea level rise. The terraces above might have been plazas, roads, or defensive platforms, while the underground spaces were intentionally hidden, protected from tidal forces or external threats. Fringe theories venture further, proposing that these chambers were used for advanced engineering, religious rituals, or even as conduits for water management, demonstrating knowledge of architecture and hydrology not commonly attributed to the region at the time. Natural explanations remain compelling as well. Sandstone is prone to fracturing along planes of weakness, producing angular voids. Earthquakes, both minor and major, can shift and crack rock, creating hollow spaces that might appear artificial. Tidal currents and scouring can smooth walls and create regular surfaces. Yet, no single natural explanation fully accounts for the combination of terraces, caverns, and potential two-like marks. Could these features represent a convergence of geological processes and incidental shaping, resulting in an environment that appears engineered without human intervention? Or is there an underlying hand guiding their form? The Yonani caverns also raise questions about preservation and accessibility. Unlike terrestrial ruins, submerged sites are subject to continuous erosion, sediment accumulation, and biological growth. Coral, algae and mollusks obscure surfaces, while the shifting seafloor can collapse passages. Any evidence of tools, carvings, or artifacts may be buried or lost. Yet the very difficulty of access amplifies the allure. What secrets might lie in darkness, unseen except by those willing to risk the currents, the cold, and the uncertain terrain? Comparisons to other enigmatic sites deepen the mystery. Just as the Al-Nazla rock challenges our understanding of precision in stone, and the Nazca tridactyl mummies challenge assumptions about human anatomy, the Yonauani caverns challenge our understanding of human ingenuity and interaction with extreme environments. If these chambers are indeed human-made, what cultural, social, or technological factors allowed their creation? If natural, how did forces of nature converge to produce such precise and suggestive forms? And in either case, what does this reveal about our tendency to seek patterns, agency, and meaning in the hidden recesses of the world? Archaeological and technological tools offer limited clarity. Sonar mapping, 3D modeling, and underwater photography provide partial views. Yet the complete layout of the claimed caverns remains elusive. Tiny crevices, uneven lighting, and the constant movement of sediment obscure critical details. Every dive yields new angles, shadows, and possibilities. Yet, no definitive floor plan or artifact assemblage has been universally accepted as proof of human construction. Each observation invites further study, reinforcing both curiosity and caution. Standing above the Yonauani terraces, looking down at the submerged stone and imagining the labyrinthine voids beneath, one is struck by the duality of perception and reality. These caverns, whether natural or crafted, remind us of the layers of history hidden beneath our feet, or in this case, was beneath the waves. Like other mysteries we have explored, Oakville, Antitha, Al-Nusla, the Yonauani caverns invite reflection on the boundaries of knowledge, the interplay between nature and human intent, and the enduring power of the unknown. As the Pacific swells over the terraces, concealing the deeper recesses in shadow, we are left with the same question that has haunted divers and scholars alike. What lies beyond the visible platforms within the hidden caverns and under the currents of time? Yes, the mystery of Yonauani's subterranean spaces endures silent yet compelling. A submerged puzzle urging patience, observation, and open minds as we continue to explore the layers of history that the Earth has preserved and the secrets it still keeps hidden beneath the waves. From the hidden recesses of the Yonauani terraces, where underwater caverns whisper secrets lost to the waves, our journey now ascends to the high windswept plateaus of Tibet. There, in the early 20th century, European scholars and explorers undertook expeditions that would leave a legacy of fascination, speculation, and controversy. Among the most enigmatic of these ventures were the missions conducted under the auspices of the Ahnenerbe, the research institute founded in Germany during the 1930s with the aim of uncovering ancient knowledge, cultural artifacts, and evidence of forgotten civilizations. The Tibetan expeditions in particular produced records, photographs, and reports that have puzzled historians and conspiracy theorists alike for decades, hinting at discoveries that might challenge our understanding of history, religion, and the human journey. The landscape of Tibet is formidable. Mountains piercing the sky, plateaus stretching beyond the horizon, rivers carving deep valleys, and monasteries clinging to cliffs in defiance of gravity. It is a land where the thin air, sudden storms, and shifting terrain demand respect and endurance. It was scholarly. To document ancient Tibetan was scholarly. To document ancient Tibetan culture, religious practices, and artifacts, and to trace what they believed were links between Himalayan traditions and early Aryan civilization. Yet the records they produced reveal tantalizing anomalies, oddities, and gaps that continue to provoke questions about the nature and scope of their findings. Among the most intriguing elements of the expedition records are detailed sketches and photographs of what appear to be ancient carvings, mysterious structures, and ritual objects. Some images show monolithic stones etched with symbols that resemble no known script, while others depict subterranean chambers or caves whose entrances seem deliberately concealed. And certain photographs highlight artifacts of unusual design, ornaments, ritual vessels, or figurines crafted from metals or stones not native to the immediate region. The accompanying field notes, sometimes fragmented or cryptically worded, describe encounters with local monks who spoke of lost knowledge, hidden treasures, and sacred sites forbidden to outsiders. Could these artifacts and locations have been remnants of ancient civilizations intentionally preserved and concealed over centuries? Or do they reflect misinterpretation, exaggeration, or selective reporting by the expedition members themselves? Mainstream historical interpretations suggest that the Anunnurba expeditions were largely ethnographic in purpose, focusing on documenting Tibetan monasteries, rituals, and cultural heritage, influenced by the ideological framework of their time. Researchers have pointed out that the missions often blurred the lines between scholarly observation and the political aims of the Institute, seeking evidence that might support theories of Aryan origins and ancient supremacy. While these claims have been widely discredited, the records themselves retain value as historical documents, offering glimpses into remote areas and cultural practices that were at the time little known outside Tibet. Yet, even within these mundane explanations, gaps and anomalies remain. Images, objects, and notes that seem to hint at discoveries not fully disclosed or comprehended. Some of the most controversial aspects of the Tibetan records involve reports of strange skeletal remains, unusual burial practices, and unexplained inscriptions in caves and monasteries. Diversions in terrain, hidden passageways, and ancient crypts suggested to the explorers a landscape layered with both the physical and symbolic traces of forgotten epics. Some photographs show unusual architectural features: chambers carved into rock with precise geometric forms, niches for unknown ritual objects, and walls adorned with symbols whose meaning remains undeciphered. Could these have been ceremonial spaces for initiates, repositories of knowledge, or markers of a civilization far older than recognized historical timelines? Fringe interpretations of the records extend into speculative realms, as some suggest that the expeditions uncovered evidence of advanced prehistoric technology, hidden libraries of esoteric knowledge, or even artifacts pointing to extraterrestrial influence on human development. Others propose that the Anunnurba may have encountered evidence of a lost civilization of the high plateau, one that thrived in isolation, mastering metallurgy, astronomy, or spiritual practices now forgotten. While mainstream scholarship dismisses many of these claims, the persistence of photographs, sketches, and first-hand accounts continues to ignite debate, inviting the question, what might have been overlooked, deliberately omitted, or misunderstood by both the explorers and subsequent historians? The human element of the expeditions adds depth to the mystery. Field notes reveal interactions with local communities, monks, nomads, and villagers who recounted legends of hidden caves, sacred artifacts, and mountain spirits. Some expedition members described feelings of unease or disorientation in certain regions, as if traversing spaces charged with energy or symbolic significance beyond comprehension. Were these perceptions merely psychological responses to the harsh terrain and cultural distance? Or might they reflect encounters with phenomena not yet understood through conventional science? Preservation and documentation challenges further complicate the record. High-altitude conditions, unpredictable weather, and the fragility of paper and photographic film mean that much of what was recorded may be incomplete or degraded. Subsequent handling, archiving, and censorship during and after World War II have resulted in missing documents, ambiguous notes, and photographs whose origins are unclear. Each gap invites speculation. Were certain findings withheld due to ideological concerns, lost during transit, or simply never understood? The uncertainty itself becomes part of the narrative, and a reminder of the limits of both human observation and historical reconstruction. Scientific analysis of some surviving artifacts has yielded intriguing results. Radiocarbon dating, metallurgical examination, and iconographic studies confirm the antiquity and craftsmanship of certain objects. Yet no definitive link has been established between these items and any known civilization or historical record. Could these represent isolated pockets of culture, transmissions of knowledge along trade routes, or evidence of entirely unknown societies? And if so, why do they appear primarily in regions of extreme geography where survival demands extraordinary ingenuity and adaptation? The Anonurba Tibetan expeditions thus exist at the intersection of history, ideology, and mystery. They provide glimpses of artifacts and sites that may hold information about human development, ritual, and knowledge, yet are framed within a context of political and cultural bias. Their records challenge modern observers to sift carefully between documented fact, interpretive observation, and the allure of the unexplained. The mountains of Tibet, with their hidden valleys, frozen cliffs, and sacred spaces, serve as a backdrop to a story in which knowledge may be partially revealed but never fully accessible, leaving a trail of questions that continue to inspire research, debate, and speculation. Standing on the plateau, imagining the paths taken by explorers decades ago, one can almost trace their footsteps through monasteries shrouded in mist, caves carved by time, and corridors of stone that may have held secrets lost to history. The Ananba records, whether interpreted as meticulous documentation or as a repository of hints toward hidden truths, remind us of the enduring tension between what is known and what remains unknown. Yet they echo the mysteries we have encountered throughout this exploration. From the Antikythera mechanism's missing components to the Oakville blobs, from the subterranean wonders of Yononi to the razor-split precision of Al-Nasla, each a testament to human curiosity confronted by the enigmatic depths of the world. As the high winds sweep across the Tibetan plateau, carrying whispers of ancient chants and forgotten pathways, we are left with questions that resist closure. What did the explorers truly encounter? How much knowledge has been lost to time, ideology, or secrecy? And what still lies hidden in the folds of mountains, behind the walls of caves, or in the careful inscriptions of artifacts yet to be fully deciphered? The Anan Arab-Tibetan expedition records endure as a puzzle, urging us to peer beyond the surface, to question assumptions, and to embrace the unknown, reminding us that the past is never entirely silent, even when it is concealed in the most remote and forbidding corners of the world. From the windswept heights of Tibet, where explorers documented enigmatic artifacts and hidden caves, we now descend into another high-altitude landscape where the earth keeps secrets frozen in ice and snow. Nestled deep within the Garhwal Himalayas of northern India lies Rupkund Lake, a glacial tarn perched at over 5,000 meters above sea level. On the surface, it is deceptively serene. One of the most chilling and mysterious discoveries in Himalayan history, the skeletal remains of hundreds of human beings sprawled along the lake's periphery and scattered across the surrounding slopes. The event that led to their deaths and the timing of that tragedy continues to puzzle researchers and visitors alike. Rupkund Lake remained largely unknown to the outside world until the mid-10th century, when trekking parties and local villagers stumbled upon the skeletal remains, some protruding from melting ice, others half buried in glacial sediment. The bones, weathered but remarkably preserved, speak to the severity of the environment. Extreme cold, thin air, and harsh sunlight that alternately freeze and bleach the remains. The sheer number of skeletons, estimated at over 500 individuals, immediately raises questions. Why would so many people have been in such a remote, inhospitable location at the same time? And what catastrophe could have claimed them all in a single concentrated period? Initial examinations suggested that the deaths were sudden and violent. Many skeletons display cranial trauma, fractures, contusions, and depressions consistent with blows from above. Yet, the fractures are not uniform, implying that a single weapon or attack did not cause them. Some researchers propose a hailstorm of extraordinary severity, a natural event so extreme that it could shatter skulls upon impact. Tibetan oral traditions and local Garhwali legends speak of storms of stone and violent forces descending from the peaks, striking travelers who ventured too far during sacred pilgrimages or trading expeditions. Could these oral histories preserve a memory of the actual event passed down across generations? Radiocarbon dating has provided surprising insights and further complications. Early studies indicated that the skeletons do not all belong to a single cohort. Instead, analyses reveal multiple clusters, some dating back as far as the 9th century AD and others to the 17th or 18th century. This suggests that Rupkund was not the site of a single catastrophic occurrence, but rather a recurring locus of deadly encounters with the mountain environment. Could the lake have been a ritual site, a pilgrimage path, or a staging area for travelers navigating treacherous terrain, repeatedly exposing visitors to the deadly elements? Or might it reflect the dangers inherent in high-altitude travel across centuries, where sudden storms, avalanches, or glacial shifts claimed lives with tragic regularity? Genetic and isotopic analysis has added another layer of intrigue, while studies of bone chemistry indicate that the victims were not from a single population. Some appear to have local Himalayan ancestry, while others carry markers suggesting origins hundreds of kilos away, including regions to the south and east. This implies that Rupkund attracted diverse groups, possibly pilgrims, traders, or even isolated communities migrating through the high passes. Why were such varied peoples converging on a place so remote and unforgiving? Could the lake have held spiritual significance? A site where local beliefs intersected with the aspirations of travelers from distant lands? The timing of the event or events is central to the mystery. The skeletal remains exposed by seasonal glacial melting suggest that deaths occurred during summer months when snow recedes and trails become accessible. However, some skeletons show evidence of having been buried by ice or snow immediately following death, while others were left exposed for years. Seasonal patterns, climatic variation, and glacial movement all complicate efforts to reconstruct a precise timeline. Did sudden weather anomalies, such as hailstorms or flash snow events, strike intermittently across centuries? Or was there a single extraordinarily violent summer responsible for multiple deaths? For archaeological offers tantalizing but ambiguous clues? Artifacts found with the skeletons are sparse but notable. Fragments of wooden walking sticks, iron knives, cloth remnants, and occasionally coins or beads. These suggest that the victims were not unprepared. Many carried items indicative of travel or ritual practice. Yet none of these objects conclusively explain why so many perished in the same general area. Could the combination of human error, environmental extremity, and perhaps unknown hazards, rock slides, sudden floods, or even supernatural interpretations preserved in local myth have led to repeated tragedy over centuries? Speculative theories, while unproven, continue to capture public imagination. Some suggest that Rupkund may have been a pilgrimage site targeted by sudden violent storms, interpreted in local lore as divine punishment. Others proposed that ritual sacrifices or ceremonial gatherings went tragically marred, though no textual evidence supports widespread sacrificial practice at this altitude. Fringe narratives drawing on the aura of mystery even hint at encounters with extraterrestrial or paranormal forces, using the patterns of trauma and clustering as supposed evidence. While intriguing, these claims remain firmly speculative, yet they underscore the sense of awe and the unresolvable questions that Rupkund inspires. Natural explanations, however, remain compelling. The Himalayas are a landscape of extreme contrasts. Sudden thunderstorms, high-velocity hail, avalanches, and lightning strikes are common, particularly during the monsoon season. A single hailstorm with unusually large, dense ice could, in theory, produce cranial fractures resembling those observed in the skeletons. Yet the repeat occurrences across centuries, combined with the convergence of individuals from distant regions, suggest that the danger of Rupkund is not a single anomaly, but a recurring hazard shaped by environment and geography. The human dimension adds poignancy to the narrative. Each skeleton represents a life interrupted. Travelers on sacred or economic journeys, villagers navigating trade routes, pilgrims seeking spiritual fulfillment. The extremity of the environment, the unpredictability of weather, and the isolation of the location amplify the drama, creating a tableau in which human ambition and vulnerability intersect with nature's relentless force. Rupkund becomes not just a site of scientific inquiry, but a reflection on the fragility of life in extreme landscapes and the enduring human desire to confront and traverse the unknown. Standing beside the icy waters of Rupkund Lake, one is struck by the silence that now pervades the scene. The lake mirrors the peaks, but beneath its surface lies a story of repeated tragedy, survival, and the enduring human confrontation with an indifferent environment. The skeletal remains exposed and preserved by glaciers serve as both witness and warning, and a testament to the power of nature, the unpredictability of high-altitude travel, and the recurring enigma of when and why these deaths occurred. As we consider Rupkund Lake, the timing of the skeletal events, and the recurring nature of human peril in this region, we are left with questions that resist final answers. Were the deaths concentrated in a single violent moment or dispersed across centuries of repeated misfortune? Why did such diverse groups converge in this remote high-altitude location? And what, if anything, can the layering of bones, artifacts, and local oral traditions tell us about the human relationship with extreme landscapes and the tragedies that unfold when ambition, faith, and nature collide? Rupkund, like all the mysteries we have explored from the Datlov Pass to the Yonauni Caverns from Al Nazla Rock to the Anunurba Tibetan expeditions, remains a silent enigma, urging us to observe, was to question, and to marvel at the hidden and often terrifying truths the world still holds. The world from the icy expanse of Rupkund Lake, where glaciers preserve the haunting echoes of human tragedy. We descend into a mystery of a very different nature, one that bridges history, faith, and science. The Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth measuring approximately 4.4 meters by 1.1 meters, has captivated scholars, theologians, and the curious for centuries. Upon its fabric rests the faint but unmistakable image of a man marked by wounds consistent with crucifixion, a visage that is at once intimate, haunting, and inexplicably preserved. The question that has captivated minds across disciplines is deceptively simple. How did this image form? Yet the answers remain as elusive as the shroud itself, tangled in a web of chemistry, history, and the mysteries of perception. The shroud story begins not with its creation, but with its survival. Woven from herringbone twill linen, the cloth bears an image of remarkable detail, the contours of a human face, the faint traces of hands and feet, and the intricate depiction of scourge marks and punctures that suggest an awareness of anatomy beyond what might have been expected at the time of its earliest historical records. Over centuries, it has been subjected to fire, water, and the handling of thousands of devotees, yet the image has endured, its subtlety remaining intact even as the fabric itself suffered from burns and repairs. To the untrained eye, it is a faded relic. Under close examination, it is a puzzle in both artistry and chemistry. Scientific investigation of the shroud has yielded an array of tantalizing data. High-resolution imaging, ultraviolet fluorescence, and spectroscopic analysis have all confirmed that the image is superficial. It does not penetrate the fibers of the cloth, but rests on the outermost threads affecting only a fraction of their surface. There is no evidence of paint, pigment, or dye applied with intentional brush strokes. Yet, the coloration is real and measurable. The pattern is not uniform. It varies with the topography of the human form it depicts, subtly highlighting the anatomy of muscles, bones, and even the position of hair and beard. Could this detail have been produced by medieval artistry alone without the aid of advanced technology? Or does the method of formation point to a process lost to time, perhaps deliberately esoteric or accidental, but nonetheless extraordinary? Radiocarbon dating conducted in the late 20th century suggested a medieval origin for the cloth, placing its creation between 1260 and 1390 AD. This result, however, has been the subject of ongoing debate. Critics argue that contamination, repair patches, and the presence of bacteria or biofilms may have skewed the results, leaving room for the possibility of an earlier origin. Some theorists posit that the shroud may have been in use centuries before it entered documented European history, perhaps traveling through Palestine and the broader Mediterranean world, witnessing centuries of veneration, handling, and exposure to environmental factors that could have influenced its current state. Could the dating discrepancy itself hint at a history more complex than modern science can yet reconcile? The mechanism of image formation is a second equally perplexing question. The coloration affects only the outer fibers and does not appear to smear or penetrate with depth, a property not easily replicated in medieval artistry. Chemical analyses show oxidized cellulose and subtle degradation consistent with a form of dehydration or pyrolytic reaction. Yet no known method produces the combination of anatomical precision, superficial staining, and three-dimensional properties exhibited by the shroud. Could a thermal, chemical, or radiation-based phenomenon explain the markings? Experiments with heat, ultraviolet light, and chemical reactions have reproduced aspects of the image, but none fully replicate the subtlety and fidelity of the original. The image itself adds to the mystery. Its three-dimensional properties revealed through modern imaging and digital enhancement suggest that the intensity of the shading correlates with distance from the body. Areas of greater contact or proximity appear darker, while recessed regions are lighter, creating a natural topography. How could medieval artisans have achieved this effect without the use of cameras, projectors, or modern photographic principles? Was the image an accidental byproduct of an unknown chemical process involving organic compounds? Or does it reflect an intentional application of knowledge now lost to history? Lost. Beyond the science lies the historical and cultural context. The shroud's first undisputed appearance in European records dates to the 14th century in Larry, France. Though legend and local tradition tie it to earlier periods in Jerusalem and surrounding regions, its path through centuries is marked by reverence, skepticism, and occasional controversy, including fire damage in 1532 and subsequent restoration. Each historical interaction adds layers of mystery. Could handling, exposure to oils, sweat, or environmental factors have contributed to the image? Were the methods of preservation, intentional or accidental, part of what allowed the markings to endure while remaining superficially applied? Speculative theories abound, ranging from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some suggest that the image resulted from chemical reactions involving linen and substances derived from the human body. Others propose that environmental phenomena, light, heat, or radiation, interacted with specific compounds to create the image in a way science cannot yet fully explain. Fringe theories venture further, considering supernatural or miraculous origins, the imprints of divine energy, or otherworldly intervention. While such ideas cannot be tested empirically, they underscore the unique intersection of faith, science, and human curiosity that the shroud inspires. The human element also demands reflection. For centuries, believers have regarded the shroud as a sacred relic, while skeptics have questioned its authenticity. The reverence with which it has been treated, stored, displayed, and protected has paradoxically both preserved and complicated the study of the artifact. Each touch, each movement, each exposure to environmental elements potentially alters the delicate chemistry that maintains the image. Yet, it is precisely this endurance, the persistence of detail over centuries, that continues to capture imagination and inspire research. Standing before the shroud, whether in historical accounts, photographs, or digital reconstructions, one is struck by its dual nature: ordinary linen and extraordinary image, tangible fabric and enigmatic imprint, human artifact and enduring mystery. It challenges conventional categories existing simultaneously as a historical object, a subject of scientific inquiry, and a symbol of devotion. The questions remain: what precise process formed the image? Could it have been created intentionally, or is it a natural phenomenon that science has yet to explain? And more profoundly, what does the persistence of this image across centuries say about the intersection of human culture, faith, and the physical world? The Shroud of Turin, like Rupkund Lake and the Anan Arab-Tibetan records, before it reminds us that history is rarely straightforward. It is layered, contested, and partially hidden, inviting both rigorous investigation and contemplative reflection. Its formation mechanism, shrouded in uncertainty, beckons scientists, historians, and observers to look closer, question assumptions, and consider possibilities beyond immediate comprehension. As light falls across the delicate weave of the linen, revealing subtle shadows and contours, the shroud challenges us to reconcile what is seen with what is known, what is measurable with what is inexplicable, and what history preserves with what remains forever hidden. And so the shroud endures, a silent witness to centuries of human observation, devotion, and inquiry. Its image, delicate yet defiant, prompts us to wonder, how does history leave its mark? And what forces, natural, human, or otherwise, shall produce phenomena that continue to defy explanation? In contemplating the Shroud of Turin, we are reminded once more that the past is never fully silent, that mysteries persist in the intersection of evidence and enigma, and that some questions, however studied, remain profoundly inexorable open. From the linen of the Shroud of Turin, where history, faith, and mystery intertwine, we now turn to the plains of South Asia, as where an ancient civilization left behind traces that challenge our understanding of human communication. The Indus Valley Civilization, flourishing along the fertile floodplains of the Indus River some 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, produced an impressive array of urban planning, metallurgy, and trade networks. Yet among their most enduring enigmas is a script that remains tantalizingly undeciphered, a collection of signs etched on stout seals, pottery shards, and copper tablets whose meaning has eluded scholars for nearly a century. The Indus script, compact yet intricate, embodies the duality of evidence and enigma, a civilization whose achievements are clear, whose voice is tantalizingly silent. The archaeological sites of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, D'Oliveira, and others offer glimpses into a world of sophisticated urban infrastructure. Streets were laid out in grid patterns. Drainage systems were meticulously engineered, and standardized weights and measures indicate a complex economic system. Amid this material sophistication, the Indus script appears. Small symbols often arranged in horizontal lines, rarely exceeding 5 or 6 characters per seal, with occasional longer sequences. These markings, etched with precision, hint at a system of communication, perhaps administrative, religious, or ceremonial, but their purpose remains uncertain. The physical characteristics of the script are striking. Symbols depict geometric shapes, animals, plants, and abstract forms. A single seal may feature a human figure alongside a composite animal, juxtaposed with a series of linear strokes, dots, or curves. The signs vary subtly between regions, suggesting regional dialects or stylistic conventions. Yet the consistency across thousands of seals, scattered over hundreds of kilometers, implies a standardized, symbolic language shared across the civilization. Could this uniformity indicate a bureaucratic system, a ritual codec, or an alphabetic script whose key has been lost to time? Decipherment efforts have spanned decades, involving linguists, epigraphers, statisticians, and computational analysts. As some scholars posit that the script represents an early form of Dravidian language, linking it to linguistic traditions in southern India, others propose a Proto-Indo-European framework, while still others argue that the script may encode a non-linguistic system of symbolic notation reflecting trade, ritual, or cosmology rather than spoken words. Statistical analysis has revealed patterns reminiscent of linguistic syntax, yet no consensus has emerged. Each proposed decipherment carries caveats, as the absence of bilingual inscriptions like the Rosetta Stone for Egyptian hieroglyphs renders verification exceedingly difficult. The brevity of the inscriptions adds to the challenge. Most seals carry only a handful of characters, rarely extending beyond 5 to 8 signs. Longer inscriptions, such as those found on some copper tablets, remain exceptions. This brevity complicates attempts to reconstruct grammar, syntax, or semantics. A lack of surviving literature or explanatory texts leaves these questions largely unanswerable, transforming every artifact into both clue and confounding mystery. Compounding the difficulty is the fragmentary nature of the archaeological record. The Indus Valley Civilization disappeared around 1900 BC. Its cities are abandoned or gradually decaying, while climate change, shifts in river courses, and potential social upheaval may have contributed to its decline. As a result, the context in which the script was used, administrative offices, marketplaces, temples, or workshops, is largely conjectural. Without clear context, symbols cannot be definitively linked to specific actions, objects, or concepts. Was the script primarily a tool for record-keeping, a marker of identity, or a medium of religious expression? And what of the literacy rate within the civilization? Was the script accessible to many, or restricted to a specialized priestly or administrative class? The physical characteristics of the artifacts themselves offer tantalizing, though ambiguous clues. Many seals bear impressions suggesting they were rolled into clay, possibly to mark goods, legal agreements, or ownership. Others appear purely ceremonial, or depicting mythic or hybrid creatures whose symbolic meaning is opaque to modern interpreters. The standardization of motifs across the Indus Valley hints at cultural cohesion, yet the diversity of signs points to complexity and regional variation. Could the script have encoded multiple layers of meaning comprehensible only to those initiated into the civilization's symbolic systemic over the past century? The Indian script has attracted a spectrum of interpretations from rigorous linguistic analysis to speculative theories bordering on pseudoscience. Some fringe claims suggest contact with lost continents, extraterrestrial influence, or advanced prehistoric knowledge, drawing connections between the symbols and cosmological diagrams or hypothetical ancient technologies. While these theories remain unsubstantiated, they underscore the powerful aura of mystery surrounding the script and the human fascination with uncovering a civilization's voice after millennia of silence. Modern technology has opened new avenues for analysis. High-resolution imaging, machine learning algorithms, and pattern recognition software have begun cataloging and comparing thousands of signs, attempting to detect repetition, syntax, and relational structures. These methods suggest that the script may contain positional rules, sequences or formulaic arrangements reminiscent of early writing systems elsewhere in the world. Yet even with these advancements, the meaning of the symbols eludes definitive interpretation. Each insight seems to raise further questions. Why are so few characters Perseal? Why such consistent standardization across vast distances? And crucially, why did the system vanish entirely with the collapse of civilization? And the Indus script challenges not only linguistic comprehension, but also our assumptions about civilization and continuity. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian ununiform, which left extensive textual legacies, the Indus Valley civilization's language survives only in fragmentary inscriptions bereft of explanatory texts. This absence forces scholars to confront the limitations of evidence. We can infer trade networks, urban planning, and social structure, but the actual words and the spoken language, the prayers and the personal stories of the people remain hidden. The civilization communicates through its artifacts, but not through decipherable prose, leaving us in a liminal space between understanding and imagination. Each discovery deepens the mystery. New sites continue to yield seals, pottery fragments, and inscriptions. Sometimes an artifact surfaces in isolation. Perhaps a seal unearthed far from its presumed origin, or a ceramic shard with an unusual combination of symbols. These anomalies force a reconsideration of existing theories and remind us that our understanding of the Indus script is provisional, built on incomplete evidence and constant reinterpretation. Could patterns we dismiss as decorative hold semantic meaning? Might regional variants encode dialects or specialized registers for trade, ritual, or governance? The possibilities are as vast as the floodplains, the civilization once inhabited, standing metaphorically beside the ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. One imagines the hands that carved these symbols into soft clay and carved stone. Hands that shaped the material culture of a world we can only glimpse through fragments. Each sign is a whisper across time, hinting at thought, memory, and communication. Yet these whispers are tantalizingly incomplete, and the deadlock of decipherment persists, reminding us that some legacies resist translation, that civilizations may leave behind brilliance without explanation, and that human curiosity must navigate between evidence and mystery. The Indus script remains at its core a testament to both achievement and enigma, a system of symbols that may have encoded commerce, governance, ritual, or culture, perhaps all simultaneously, and yet one whose meaning has vanished with the collapse of its civilization. It challenges linguists, historians, and technologists to reconcile structure with uncertainty, consistency with ambiguity, and human ingenuity with the limitations imposed by time. As the floodplains of the Indus silently bear witness to centuries of human enterprise, the script continues to elude definitive interpretation, inviting us to ponder what knowledge, stories, and voices remain forever just out of reach. And so, as we trace the Indus script's undeciphered lines, we confront the tension between evidence and enigma, history and mystery, comprehension and wonder. Like the Shroud of Turin before it, Rupkund Lake, or the Yonani subterranean caverns, the Indus script reminds us that the past is rarely fully knowable. Some questions resist closure. Some knowledge lies buried beneath time and sediment, and some voices, though once powerful, are now silent. Yet, in this silence lies the enduring fascination of human curiosity, a call to investigate, to imagine, and to marvel at the secrets the world preserves, waiting for the patient observer to uncover one enigmatic symbol at a time. From the undeciphered symbols of the Indus Valley to the frozen tragedies of Rupkund, human history constantly confronts us with enigmas that resist simple explanation. Our journey now moves across continents and millennia, descending into the arid heartlands of southern Peru, where the Ica region reveals its own mysterious testament to the ingenuity and ritual life of past civilizations. Here at top low hills and along desert plateaus rise clusters of burial towers, tall rectangular adobe structures known locally as chulpas. At first glance, these ancient tombs are striking for their sheer persistence in the landscape, weathered by centuries of wind and sun. Yet it is their arrangement, carefully aligned almost ritualistically in relation to one another and to the horizon, that has long captivated archaeologists, historians, and enthusiasts alike. But the Ica towers are not uniformly constructed. Some rise more than 10 meters above the desert floor. Others barely breach the surrounding terrain. Each tower houses remains, often accompanied by grave goods, pottery, textiles, jewelry, and occasionally small figurines, all carefully interred. The towers vary in size, shape, and orientation. Yet, when observed from above, a pattern emerges. Lines of sight connecting towers, axes seemingly oriented to cardinal directions, and alignments that correspond with the rising and setting of the sun at solstices. It is as if the towers themselves form a deliberate network, a map etched across sand and stone, codifying knowledge of astronomy, ritual practice, or social hierarchy. Scholars have long debated the purpose of these alignments. Some argue they are purely functional, marking territorial claims or demarcating familial or tribal boundaries. Others suggest a more profound connection with celestial phenomena, and noting that many towers line up with the solar and lunar cycles, or with prominent stars and constellations visible in the southern sky. Could these structures have served as a calendar, a sacred observatory, or a ceremonial path connecting the living and the dead? The precision of the alignments suggests more than mere coincidence. Some axes correspond to the solstice sunrise with an accuracy of less than a degree, implying intentionality and advanced knowledge of astronomy. Dating the towers is itself an ongoing challenge. Carbon analyses of organic material within the adobe walls suggest construction spanning from approximately 500 BC to 1A, a period that encompasses multiple cultural phases in the Andean highlands. This longevity hints at continuous ritual significance, with successive generations building upon the foundations of their ancestors. Yet the continuity of architectural practice contrasts with the scarcity of written records. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, where inscriptions clarify the motivations behind monumental structures, the people of Ica left no textual explanation for these alignments. We are left with earth and adobe, sun and shadow, and the silent testimony of a people whose understanding of the cosmos is encoded in stone. The physical features of the towers themselves offer tantalizing clues. The walls are often exceptionally thick and built from finely shaped adobe bricks with internal niches and shelves carved into the interior. Some towers feature external staircases or platforms, suggesting that rituals may have involved observation or ceremonial procession. The placement of doors, windows, and openings in relation to celestial events, sunrise, sunset, lunar cycles, indicates a sophisticated awareness of environmental and astronomical cycles. Was this alignment intended to mark the passage of time for the living, guide spirits of the dead, or serve both purposes simultaneously? The answer remains elusive. Adding complexity is the patterning across the broader landscape. Many towers form clusters in a seemingly geometric arrangement connected by sightlines or paths. Some align with distant mountains or prominent natural features, suggesting that the landscape itself played a role in the ritual calculus of the builders. Could these alignments encode cosmological narratives, spiritual symbolism, or even social hierarchies, connecting clans, lineages, or communities through the positioning of the dead? Researchers have plotted the towers using GPS and topographical analysis, revealing that certain alignments repeat across multiple sites, hinting at cultural or religious conventions rather than isolated accidents. Speculation naturally abounds. Some archaeologists propose that the towers functioned as ceremonial beacons, visible across miles of desert and providing markers for seasonal gatherings or pilgrimages. Others consider that the alignments could indicate advanced astronomical observation, offering early insight into Andean cylindrical systems long before European contact. Fringe theories occasionally suggest even more extraordinary possibilities, that the towers encoded lost knowledge of the cosmos, mathematics, or energy principles embedded in the landscape itself. While these claims cannot be verified, they underscore the enduring sense of wonder the site inspires. Material evidence further complicates interpretation. Artifacts found within the towers, including finely decorated ceramics, textiles, and even small metal objects, suggest trade networks, cultural continuity, and the wealth of those interred. Yet these items alone cannot explain the geometric precision of the tower placements. The alignment seems independent of individual burials. It's more concerned with the broader pattern across the landscape than the contents of any single tomb. Could the towers themselves have been the primary focus, with the human remains playing a secondary symbolic role? Or does the integration of human and architectural elements reflect a holistic cosmology in which the living, the dead, and the heavens were inseparably intertwined? The tower's alignment with celestial events is particularly striking. Observation suggests that from specific vantage points, the first rays of the solstice sun illuminate doorways or niches at exact angles, creating shafts of light that would have been visible only at precise times of the year. Could such phenomena have guided ritual activity, informed agricultural planning, or reinforced the authority of religious leaders who understood the cycles of the heavens? The precision required for these alignments implies careful observation over years, or possibly generations, challenging assumptions about the technological and astronomical capabilities of pre-Columbian societies. Natural erosion, seismic activity, and centuries of human interference have altered many towers. Yet enough remains intact to suggest that the overall plan was deliberate. The sight lines, axes, and distances between towers are difficult to attribute to random placement. Mapping the region with modern tools, satellite imagery, drones, and GIS software has confirmed that certain patterns repeat across multiple sites, suggesting an overarching principle guiding construction. Could this indicate shared knowledge across communities, standardized ritual practices, or a cosmological doctrine preserved orally over centuries? The human dimension remains central to the mystery. Each tower holds the remains of individuals who were life participants in a culture that understood the symbolic and celestial significance of these constructions. Were these burials intended to honor ancestors, mark transitions in leadership, or serve as offerings to the sky? The alignment may have ensured that the dead were perpetually connected to cycles of the cosmos, reinforcing beliefs about life, death, and the universe. Even in absence of written records, the towers communicate a profound message that the relationship between humans and their environment was deliberate, observed, and encoded in architecture. Yet the mystery persists. Why such precision across multiple sites? Why did the practice endure over centuries? And most intriguingly, what knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, or otherwise, was transmitted through these alignments only to be partially lost with the collapse of the society that built them? Each tower, each axis, and each alignment invites speculation, careful study, and reflection, reminding us that human creativity often outpaces our ability to fully comprehend it. As we contemplate the Ica burial towers today, rising from desert hills beneath a vast open sky, we are struck by their quiet testimony, evidence of ritual, science, and imagination intertwined. These structures, carefully oriented in relation to the sun, moon, and stars, are simultaneously practical, symbolic, and enigmatic. Like the Indescript, the Shroud of Turin, and Rupkund Lake before them, they present evidence of a sophisticated culture whose intentions and knowledge partially elude us. They challenge modern observers to consider how humans interact with the cosmos, how rituals encode meaning, and how landscape, architecture, and death may intersect to form enduring patterns across time. The Ica burial towers, their alignments etched across hills and horizons, remain a puzzle. They remind us that human history is not always linear or fully intelligible. Knowledge can be encoded in ways that survive for millennia, yet resist definitive interpretation. What stories, beliefs, and practices informed these placements? How did these towers shape the lives, deaths, and cosmology of those who built them? And how much of this knowledge remains hidden, waiting for careful observation, insight, or perhaps a revelation that bridges the centuries? Ancient desert towers stand as silent witnesses. Their alignment reveals human curiosity and ancient worldviews, enduring as mysteries of the past. From the sun-drenched deserts of Peru, where the Ica burial towers whisper their silent alignments across millennia, we now journey to the rugged expanse of northern Mexico, to the labyrinthine depths of the Copper Canyon. Here, dramatic cliffs plunge into narrow gorges, rivers carve their way through steep canyons, and forests cling precariously to vertical slopes, creating a landscape both breathtaking and forbidding. It is within this dramatic terrain, largely inaccessible and shrouded in mist and shadow, that whispers of extraordinary discoveries, giant human skeletons, have long circulated. For generations, explorers, locals, and researchers have spoken in hushed tones about remains of unprecedented size, suggesting that the people who once inhabited these canyons were far taller and stronger than any modern human. The Copper Canyon system, known in Spanish as Barranca del Cobre, is itself a marvel of scale and isolation, carved over millennia by tectonic forces and the persistent flow of the Rio Fuerte and its tributaries. It encompasses deep chasms, hidden plateaus, and cliffs rising over 1,000 meters. Its remote terrain has preserved numerous archaeological sites, from cliff dwellings to cave paintings, offering a window into the lives of pre-Columbian cultures such as the Tarahumara, known today for their incredible endurance and intimate knowledge of the canyons. Among these tangible records of human habitation, stories of anomalous skeletal remains have emerged. Tales of elongated bones, massive femurs, and skulls far larger than what anthropologists would expect from ordinary Homo sapiens. As documentation of these claims is fragmentary. Early accounts dating to the late 19th and early 20th centuries describe miners, explorers, and local inhabitants discovering large skeletal remains while excavating caves or clearing rock slides. These reports often describe bodies measuring 2 to 3 meters in length with disproportionately large hands and feet, sometimes accompanied by ceremonial artifacts. Many of these artifacts, stone tools, pottery, and ornamental items, are consistent with known indigenous practices. Yet, the reported skeletal dimensions fall well outside the anthropometric range for known human populations. Could these reports be exaggerations, misinterpretations, or do they hint at a population lost to time whose physical characteristics defy modern understanding? Skeptics argue that accounts of giants are folklore amplified over decades, shaped by local legends and the natural tendency to dramatize discoveries in an awe-inspiring landscape. Indeed, some of the earliest stories were relayed orally, sometimes through intermediaries unfamiliar with scientific methods, raising the possibility of error, embellishment, or misidentification. Still, the consistency of certain recurring details, particularly the references to skeletal proportions far exceeding modern humans, suggests that the narrative cannot be dismissed entirely as myth. Could there be a kernel of truth underlying these tales, obscured by time, limited access, and lack of rigorous archaeological investigation? The geology and isolation of the canyon complicate verification. Many reported discovery sites are deep within narrow gorges, accessible only by steep trails or rope-assisted descents. Sedimentation, erosion, and vegetation have obscured or destroyed potential evidence, leaving researchers to rely on fragmentary reports, sketches, and occasionally photographs that are difficult to authenticate. In some cases, bones attributed to giants may in fact be the remains of exceptionally tall individuals. Prehistoric megafauns, misidentified as human or human remains, distorted by mineralization over centuries. The line between plausible explanation and tantalizing anomaly is often blurred. Adding to the intrigue are anecdotal accounts from local Tarahumara communities. Elders recount stories of a race of people referred to in some oral histories as the first ones who roamed the canyons long before the ancestors of current inhabitants. These beings are described as towering, strong, and intimately connected to the land, capable of feats of endurance and agility that ordinary humans could not match. While oral tradition cannot be equated with scientific evidence, yes, it does reflect a cultural memory of anomalous beings whose existence was significant enough to embed in storytelling and ritual. Could these oral histories preserve fragments of truth about a distinct population long vanished but leaving behind traces in the cliffs, caves, and river valleys of Copper Canyon? Modern investigation has been sporadic and inconclusive. Archaeologists and anthropologists have surveyed known sites, but access difficulties, environmental hazards, and the scarcity of corroborated skeletal evidence have limited extensive studies. Reports from the 1970s and 1980s describe large skeletal fragments found in caves or under rock shelters, often measured informally and lacking proper preservation. Some researchers have proposed that mineralization, compression, and distortion over centuries could exaggerate the perceived size of remains, while others suggest that anomalously large human specimens may have existed within certain populations, or perhaps due to genetic variation or nutritional factors. Some fringe theories take the mystery further. Speculation ranges from the possibility of a lost human subspecies to claims of ancient contact with beings of extraordinary stature, sometimes framed in the context of global legends of giants, from the biblical Nephilim to the myths of Andean and Mesoamerican traditions. While such claims remain speculative, they underscore the enduring fascination of the Copper Canyon narrative. as the possibility that human history, as currently understood, may contain anomalies that challenge accepted models of population, biology, and cultural development. Material evidence associated with reported finds, stone tools, ceramic fragments, and textile remnants tends to conform to known pre-Columbian traditions. This paradox deepens the mystery. If the skeletal remains were truly exceptional in size, why do the accompanying artifacts reflect conventional scale? Some have suggested that if giants existed, their tools and constructions may have been intentionally aligned with standard human sizes, either due to ritual purposes or as a practical accommodation to other groups. Others propose that the skeletal reports themselves may be misinterpretations with environmental and post-mortem effects exaggerating bone dimensions. The canyon itself is a character in this unfolding story. Misty gorges, sheer cliff faces, and dense forested slopes make systematic surveying exceedingly difficult. Seasonal rains, flash floods, and landslides further complicate preservation of fragile remains. Yet, the terrain also preserves secrets. Hidden caves, isolated plateaus, and eroded cliff ledges may hold untapped evidence of ancient habitation, skeletal remains, or ritual structures. Each fragment uncovered offers both insight and more questions, inviting careful, patient study. At the scale of human endeavor implied by these claims is remarkable. If some individuals truly reached the heights described in oral accounts and early reports, how did they interact with their environment, sustain themselves, and construct their dwellings? How might their communities have differed from those of ordinary-sized humans living in the same region? Were these individuals integrated into broader populations? Or were they distinct groups whose memory survived only in oral tradition and scattered skeletal fragments? Ultimately, the Copper Canyon giant skeleton claims occupy a liminal space between archaeology, folklore, and the human imagination. Each fragment, each testimony, each photograph or sketch hints at something extraordinary, yet remains frustratingly incomplete. The reports challenge our assumptions about human variability, raise questions about overlooked evidence in remote regions, and invite reflection on the boundaries between myth and reality. The mystery persists not because it is impossible to resolve, but because it requires careful navigation through fragmentary evidence, natural distortion, and centuries of storytelling. As we survey the steep cliffs and winding canyons today, one can imagine explorers and indigenous guides stumbling upon massive bones partially buried beneath soil and rock, sunlight filtering through the canyon walls. One wonders about the individuals to whom these bones belonged, their lives, their stature, and their relationship to the rugged land that shaped them. Were they the subjects of extraordinary genetic traits, or the subjects of memory transformed into legend? And if the remains were indeed anomalous, what other traces of their civilization or culture might still be hidden in the folds of the canyon, awaiting discovery by those with patience and curiosity to seek them out? And the Copper Canyon giant skeletons, like the Ica burial towers, remind us that human history holds mysteries beyond imagination. Across landscapes, traces of past activity, artifacts, structures, and skeletal remains challenge our understanding. These anomalies invite careful exploration, blending rigor with imagination, and show that the past continually preserves secrets, questions, and the allure of the unknown. The allure of the